great. You can start, Chairman.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Welcome to an online meeting of RBKC's Licensing Subcommittee, and thank you for attending. I am Councillor Dory Schmetterling, and I will be chairing this meeting. It is being held via Microsoft Teams and is also being streamed live. The committee for this hearing comprises Councillor Charles Williams, Councillor Pat Healy, and me. And councillors, could you please introduce yourselves? And if you haven't already done so, please turn on your cameras so people can see who you are.
Yes, I'm Councillor Charles Williams, member of the Licensing Committee and a councillor for Redcliffe Ward.
Good morning. I'm Councillor Pat Healy. I represent Dalgarno Ward and I'm a member of the Licensing Committee.
Councillor, if you'd like to turn your cameras off, please do. My view on this is keep them on if you can, but you know, if you don't wish to, or for connection reasons, then turn them off. We are joined remotely by Paul Phelan from the Council's licensing team. Our legal officer today is Lindsay Lemazurier. Also with us is our committee officer, Anne Wright. Ms. Wright will be monitoring all of our connections and help with any technical issues we may have. She is supported by Gareth Ebenezer, Yasmin Jama, and Esme Shari from the governance team. Before we start hearing the case, just a few ground rules. Please keep your microphones on mute until you are invited to speak. And please make sure mobile phones are on silent. And having said that, I'm going to turn my own phone onto silent. Do keep your cameras on. We're not speaking if you wish, unless we run into connection problems when we may have to ask you definitely to turn them off. So far, of the experience I've had, it's been okay. Please note that the Microsoft Teams chat function is not monitored, so please do not use it. In addition, this is a public meeting and the chat would not be seen in the live streams, so a lot of the public could not see it. Everyone should have received the procedure for this meeting regarding the use of cameras and how to connect back in if you lose the connection. Thank you. The case before us today is to vary a license for 2-4 Farmer Street, London, W8 7SN. This is formerly the Gill's Fish Restaurant, now called Los Mochis. We will have now declarations of interest. First of all, I confirm that I have no declaration to make. Do the other members have any declarations to make? Councillor Williams?
I have no declaration to make.
Councillor Healy?
No, I have no declaration to make either.
Thank you. The quorum for this committee is 2. As there is always the possibility that I may lose connection temporarily during the broadcast, I am nominating Councillor Williams to be appointed as the substitute chair. Members, please confirm whether this nomination is seconded. Councillor Healy?
Happy to second.
Thanks very much indeed. I confirm that Councillor Williams has been appointed substitute chair. Thank you, colleagues. For the procedure, I will outline, for clarity, I'll outline the procedure of the meeting, which, as already mentioned, has been circulated with the papers and are online. First, the licensing officer, Mr. Paul Phelan, will give a brief outline of the application. Could you please confirm your attendance?
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Then I'll ask the applicant's legal advisor, Mr. Joseph Cannon, to present his submission. He is joined, he will have up to a maximum of 10 minutes to do so. He is joined by his clients, Markus Teslev and Anthony Papalas, who may be able to assist members should they have any questions. Please, could you all confirm your attendance? Mr. Cannon?
Good morning, Chair. I'm here. Hopefully you can hear me and my camera is working.
Yes, I think so.
Good.
Mr. Teslev?
Good morning, everybody. I'm here, and thank you so much for getting my name right.
I won't. I'll ask you later. Maybe how other people get it wrong, Mr.
You're
Well, this
pretty much
question-
first.
Pardon?
Pretty much the first.
Right. Mr. Papalas, or is it Papalas?
Good morning, it's Papalas.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Then questions will be asked by members of the committee of the applicant. Then questions may be asked by the objectors of the applicant. And next, the objectors. That's Irene Frail, Olivia Aubrey, and Patrick Foster will present their objections. They will have up to a maximum of 10 minutes each to do so. Please, could you confirm your attendance? Irene Frail,
Yes, here I am.
have I pronounced it correctly?
Not really, but that's all right.
Well, please tell us how you pronounce it correctly.
It's Irene Fraile, but Irene works.
But it's Fraile. Okay. Ms. Aubrey,
Yes, I'm hearing you pronounce it perfectly.
what? Is that right?
Yes.
Mr. Foster, Patrick Foster.
Yes, I'm here, and my picture's working as well, which is very exciting.
We all should have good portraits by now, having had 9 months of practice.
Indeed.
Chair, can I interject, please? It's
Sure.
Lindsay, legal advisor. I believe Councillor Freeman is also speaking in objection.
Right. Councillor Freeman, are you here?
I am here. I don't intend to speak.
Okay. Okay, I'm just making a note so we don't call on you. Then questions will be asked by members of the committee to the objectors. Questions may be asked by applicant's legal advisor to the objectors. After this, we will ask our legal officer, Ms. Le Mazurier, to deal with any questions she may have, for example, regarding any conditions. Then finally, we will turn to the governance team to see if any issues have been raised in the chat box that we need to consider. But I stress, we should try to avoid doing it. There will be no summing up, and the meeting will then end. I would like to remind everyone that the committee has read the papers, so there is no need to repeat their content, but please do draw our attention to certain points and pages, and Ms. Wright will move the document on the screen for us. Right, we can now proceed. And if you wish, you can turn your cameras off, but as I said, keep them on if there's no particular technical issue. Well, for the Mr. Phelan, can you please outline the case for us?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Today's application has been submitted by Los Mijos W8 Limited for the variation of a premises licence at 2 to 4 Farmer Street, London W87SN. The following is a summary of the proposed changes sought as part of this application. To add off sales of alcohol for the same hours as those currently granted for on sales. To add late night refreshment outdoors from 11 p.m. until midnight, Monday to Sunday. To amend the opening hours to start at 7 a.m. To update the layout of the premises in accordance with the deposited plan, which includes extending the licensed area on the first floor and to include the historic terrace at the front of the property, and to replace condition 9 of the premises license. Both the current wording of condition 9 and the proposed wording to replace this condition can be found on page 2 of today's papers. Full details of the activities and timings currently permitted, as well as those changes sought, can be found on pages 1 and 2 of today's report. The licensing authority has received 32 representations which oppose this application. This includes representations from Councillor Fawkes and Councillor Freeman of Camden Ward, in addition to one from the Hillgate Village Residents Association. A summary of these representations can be found on pages 4 to 8, with copies attached at Appendix D on pages 34 to 82 of the main bundle. Questions have been raised by objectors as to what areas are covered by the current premises licence. For the benefit of committee, I can confirm that the first floor licensed areas are those marked restaurant, bar and waiting area on the first floor, which can be seen on page 18 of the report, and on the ground floor, the internal restaurant area towards the front of the property, which can be seen on page 19 of the report. Concerns have also been raised that the flat roof on the first floor is now to be used as a terrace. However, there is nothing in the application to confirm that as the case, or that there is a terrace at first floor level. The only terrace identified on the new plans is the forecourt area at the front of the premises, which is not part of the existing licensed area, and which we believe is the historic terrace referred to in the application, which can be found on page 23 of the report. Council records indicate the premises has received no complaints over the previous 24-month period. I can also confirm that one temporary event notice was received by the licensing authority in the preceding 24 months. A summary of this temporary event notice has been attached at Appendix E, page 82. That concludes a summary of the application. I'll leave it there for now.
Thanks very much, Mr. Phelan. I'm going to ask Mr. Cannon to present the submission. Do turn your camera on if you like, but I would like to add something that, you know, having seen all the documents, all the documents, I say that we are business friendly as a council, of course, but we have to weigh up residents' needs and concerns. Having housing density has been recognised in the Statement of Licensing Policy, Section 8, page 105 of the pack, paragraphs 8.9, 8.11, 8.14, and so on. So here we have a case that exemplifies the situation, but this case, like every other case, has to be judged on its own merits. So, Mr. Cannon, would you like to present your case?
Thank you, sir, and good morning. Can I start with a couple of questions and a request, please? The questions, first of all, do you and your colleagues have the bundle of additional documents that my client put in, I think, on the 8th of January? You do. That's great news. I couldn't see it on the website, but it's excellent. And you've had a chance to have a look through that and see what's said in there. If you've got that, then that's extremely helpful, and that will save a great deal of time.
Yes.
Thank you. The second point is an apology, which is that outside of my window this morning, the workmen across the way have started to angle grind some paving. I don't know whether you can hear it. I can hear it. I hope you can't. But if it does start to interfere, then I can only apologise for it. It's one of the dangers of home working, but I think that's just what we're faced with. I don't know whether it's interfering at the moment. It's going on at the moment, but it doesn't sound as if it's a problem.
Thank you. No.
Okay. Good. And the third is a request. Now, I know that there's a 10-minute time limit in normal circumstances, but I also know you have a discretion to extend that. I'm going to ask for your indulgence on that, but I don't want a great deal of indulgence. There are 3 people speaking against my client's application today with 10 minutes each, and I wonder if you might permit me 20 minutes to deal with what is an extremely important application for my client for a pretty major investment in Kensington and Chelsea. If you say no, we'll do our best to do it in 10 minutes, but I think in 20 we can give you a full flavour of exactly what's proposed here and address the points that you've raised in your little introduction this morning.
Well, I need to consult on this, but I think you know what the rule is, and the rule is that every speaker gets 10 minutes.
Indeed, indeed.
I can't see why we should extend the 10 minutes. Well, we can give you maybe a couple of extra minutes if it really makes a difference. But please remember, we have seen the documents and we have read them all. If you feel there's more than 10 minutes worth to add to that and deal with objectors' points, then you know maybe we can add a couple of minutes or so.
Well, so of course I know that's the rule, but I also have read in the protocol that you have a discretion to extend that in the interest of justice, and that's the basis of my application.
Well, let's give you an extra 5 minutes and let's see how we go.
I'm grateful. We'll take 15. That's fine. Let's get going then. The way I'm going to do this, if I may, is give you a bit of an introduction. I know you've read the papers. I don't need to take very long on it, on exactly what's proposed. And just make absolutely clear what the application is for, because there are a couple of changes since the application was made. Then I'm going to hand over to Mr. Teslev, who is going to give you a brief overview of his vision, why he's come to Notting Hill, what he sees at this venue and why he's decided to invest in it. And then I'm going to deal with a few of the points, if I may, that are raised by the various objectors. So that's the shape of what I'm going to deal with. Background then, you will know that this is or was Gilles Restaurant on the corner of Farmer Street and Uxbridge Street. It's been a restaurant since 1939, and in the pack put in by my client you'll see some photographs of Giles in the last 10 or 15 years. It's had a number of paint jobs and so on, but effectively it's been the same. It was a fish-based restaurant with bifolding doors that open at the front, a patio area at the front where people have for many years sat and taken meals, and there is no record of complaints at all. So a restaurant in that form has operated in this space for many years without causing issues related to the licensing objectives and without causing complaints. The current license permits, and this is really important, I wonder if whoever's in control, I think it might be the legal advisor, might just go to page 1 a little bit further down, which sets out the current, there we go, that box at the bottom, the current permissions on the license, perhaps a little bit further down just to get the opening hours as well. You can see that at present, so with no changes at all, this licence authorises the sale of alcohol on the premises between 11 in the morning and 11:30 at night, the provision of late night refreshment, hot food and drink, after 11, between 11 p.m. and midnight, and that the premises to be open between 10 in the morning and midnight every day of the week, 7 days a week. That's the present authorisation. So if no variation was made, that would be the framework within which this restaurant would be entitled to operate. Mr. Teslev has taken a lease of the premises. His intention is to bring his highly successful restaurant portfolio, largely based in the Middle East, and extend that to London. And he's chosen this particular venue because he thinks it fits absolutely perfectly with what he's got in mind for it. And as I said, in a moment, I'll hand over to him to give you a bit of background about that. Los Mochis is going to be a high quality neighbourhood restaurant utilising the cooking styles or fusing the cooking styles of Mexico and Japan, using the current premises licence. He's here, as I've said, ready to answer questions, and so is Mr. Papalas, who's the general manager of the premises, another person who has been part of Mr. Teslev's portfolio in the Middle East and has come to London to help run this new proposition. The headline is that this is a major investment in London by a very successful and high-profile restaurateur in London's hospitality industry, at a point where London's hospitality industry is frankly on its knees. It will be a high-profile addition to the London restaurant scene, and as I said, Mr. Teslev will explain his concept in due course, but you'll have seen already, I think, the menus, some visualizations of the inside, what this looks like. Now, I've said already that he will be relying, in order to run Los Mochis, on the existing licence, but he applies today for what I say is a very modest variation to that licence. And I want to be absolutely clear about what it is that he's asking you to grant him. If Ms. Le Mesurier could just go down to page 2, please. You can see that the proposed changes are set out. That's fine, thank you very much. And I just want to be absolutely clear what they are. First of all, there's a request to add off sales of alcohol within exactly the same hours as the licence presently permits on sales. So that's change 1. Now, the purpose behind that is to permit alcohol to be sold as part of the delivery and takeaway service of meals. At present, meals cooked in the restaurant can be bought by customers from their homes and delivered via Deliveroo, Uber Eats, one of those services, and taken to their homes. But we can't at the moment sell alcohol with those meals. So there's the first point is to add an authorization to sell alcohol with those delivery and takeaway services in exactly the same time frame, and alcohol sold in closed containers only. So no question of there being a kind of off license operation or street drinking or anything of that nature. The second part of the application concerned the late night refreshment, but that is withdrawn. We no longer ask for variation in respect of late night refreshment. We're happy that late night refreshment shall only be provided indoors after 11, so that can be struck from the application. The third point concerns opening hours. At the moment, you'll remember the opening hours are authorised to be from 10 a.m. until midnight every day. Mr. Teslev's operation includes a breakfast offer. The suggestion is that those opening hours be changed. Initially, it was 7 a.m. We've heard what residents say about early opening. We're perfectly happy that be 8 a.m. to make a breakfast offering. There'll be no alcohol at that time, no change to the authorisation of selling alcohol, but we ask that between 8 and 10 in the morning, we be permitted to serve breakfast on the premises. No alcohol involved in that. And the third element, the third element that remains is, as has been said, a change to the plans that are on the license presently. And it's worth just going down, if the legal advisor wouldn't mind, to page 18, please, which is where the current license plans are. Now you can see that's a plan of the first floor, and in the top left hand corner, or top right if it was oriented the right way, you can see that plan dates from 1979. It's extremely old. That's actually the same age as me, as it happens. It doesn't reflect in any way the internal layout of the premises, or indeed the way the premises has been run for many, many years. There has been a top floor dining room at the back for years, so the plans are wholly outdated. And then page 19, which is the ground floor plan, also doesn't reflect anything like the present layout. So the proposition is that we replace those outdated and inaccurate plans with plans that reflect the actual layout of the premises as at present, and as will be once the works have been done, assuming this application is granted. So there isn't any attempt here to expand the licensable area from what has been utilised for many years. Now, I take the point that there's some suggestion that an interpretation of those plans excludes certain bits, the front patio, which we all know has been used for many years for licensable activities. But this is a regularisation attempt, not an attempt to expand the licensable area. The particular point on the first floor is that the rooms that are marked storage haven't been used for storage for years and have been a dining room offering licensable activities for many years. And then the last point, which is a very minor point, is a suggested amendment to condition 9, just to extend the requirement that one sells alcohol as ancillary to meals to the off sales aspect, if that is granted. I'll just pause while the phone is dealt with.
Hello?
I think whoever's got the phone call might want to just put themselves on mute. So I hope you don't mind. I'll just wait until that happens. I don't know who that is.
I'm in the middle of a Zoom meeting, so can I be quick?
Pat, Councillor Healy, we could hear you.
She does seem to be on mute, but at least on the screen. But Chair, I think you're now on mute. I can't hear you.
Yes, you have 6. I was going to say, please carry on. Yes, please carry on. You have 6 minutes left.
Councillor, I will. Of course I will. I just want to be sure that if that was Councillor Healy, that she's still in the meeting, and obviously if she needs to take a phone call, we can pause. But as one of the three, I sort of need to.
Please carry on.
I am in the room. The phone call has been dealt with. Sorry about that.
No need at all. I just want to make sure that you're not otherwise indisposed. I'm very grateful for the indication. Thank you. The headline point then of the last few minutes is that this is a modest variation application. It is not an application for a new license. It's certainly not a review of the license. And that is a point, I say, that is well understood by the responsible authorities at Kingston and Chelsea, because they haven't made a representation. Crucially, neither the police and in particular environmental health have not indicated any concerns about the 3 changes that are proposed. And the reason that they haven't, I venture to suggest, is that they are modest. The other point is that, of course, it follows that Mr. Tesleff is perfectly able to open and trade as Los Mochis without this variation, prepared to do so if he has to. He can provide off sales presently under the Business and Planning Act. That there's a relaxation under that, which is true at least until September. The breakfast offer is not central to his offer, and you've heard what I've said about the plans, but it's obviously miles better for him if the variations are granted. I'm just going to pause again because I can see there's a hand up from Mr. Phelan.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. I just wanted to clarify a point with regards to responsible authorities and their position with this application. Essentially, Noise and Nuisance reviewed the application and they were unaware that the current application proposed to extend the licensed area to the outside areas, i.e. the first floor terrace and the rear courtyard. Their position would have been to object had they have been made aware through the application. to these proposed changes?
Well, then I'm going to need to ask the legal advisor to make a ruling on that, because she will know, as I think you will, Mr. Phelan, that in circumstances where representations were not made, it would be a grave error to take into account a position of a responsible authority where they haven't made a representation. Can I just ask the legal advisor to give a ruling on that, or at least a view? I am concerned that that is a sort of representation by the back door while they're not here.
Chair, are you happy to speak?
Yes, before we get to that, I wanted to just go back a couple of steps, and I'm going to add a couple of minutes because of this interruption to your time. You said there were 3 points. Outdoor ends that you made changes. Outdoor ends at 2300. You propose a start at 8 o'clock and no alcohol. What else was there? Was a third point, I think you said.
Well, one of those 3 is not one. So the outdoor, the adding of outdoor late night refreshment has been abandoned. That is not one of the points. So
yes, I thought you said that's ends. You made a point. Outdoor ends at 2300.
Yeah, that's as the license presently provides.
And that's what you propose. I thought you said you proposed to do that.
Well, we propose to leave that as it presently provides, so no change to that.
And you propose to start at 8 o'clock instead of 7?
Well, open at 8 o'clock. Not
I understand that. Start the restaurant. Open the restaurant.
Correct.
It was a third point. I thought you said there were 3 things. What about I missed one?
It was the first one, which was to permit off sales of alcohol. So sales of alcohol off the premises.
Okay. Right.
In the same hours as the on sales are presently permitted for the delivery service.
Okay, thank you. Right, Ms. Lemazurier, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Cannon is correct. As the responsible authority have not made an objection within the requisite period, obviously that cannot be introduced now.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Cannon, would you like to proceed?
Thanks, I'm really grateful for that. And
you've got 4 minutes.
Well, thank you. I just need to make a point about that, because the effect of that ruling is that you should leave out of account the suggestion that was made by Mr. Phelan that Environmental Health are not happy with this. You've heard already that there have been no complaints for the last 2 years, and you should take from their lack of a representation that they are comfortable with the application. I'm going to hand over now for a couple of minutes to Mr. Teslev just to explain the background very briefly, and then if I may, I'm going to come back and make a couple of additional points. Mr. Teslev, are you there?
Hi, everyone. Morning again.
Hello, Mr. Teslev. Good morning
again. Awesome. All right, cool.
3 minutes.
All right, I'll try not to talk too fast and confuse everybody. So basically, thank you all for taking the time. I just wanted to say that, look, my proposal is it's been a restaurant there for years and years, which has been doing really well without too many issues. And all we're really doing is changing the cuisine from cooked fish to raw fish and some Mexican food. We've assembled an amazing team. We've managed to get 2 Tier 2 visas right at the end before the rules changed. Nothing to do with timing, but the fact that we got 2 Tier 2 visas for chefs tells you the quality of the chefs that we brought in. I'm making an £875,000 investment into the area to make an awesome fusion restaurant of Mexican, Japanese food. And it was all built and conceived around the idea of community originally, and which was every time we sell a meal, we give a meal to homeless and help those less fortunate. And that's a very strong pillar in what we do. And everything is built around that, to be honest, that and having an amazing team working there. I just wanted to, obviously for you to be able to put a face to the name and to rest assured that, we're going to hopefully make everybody proud. The reason we picked this area is because personally, I live in Notting Hill. A number of my partners live in Notting Hill, very well-known members of society, as well as do many of our staff members. And, a couple of really good restaurants, quality restaurants would be awesome for the neighborhood, I believe. And I love the energy. We spent some good time with the neighbors the other night on a conversation and trying to deal with a lot of their concerns. I'm not asking for anything crazy or new here. I'm just asking for what's been there for years to actually just been made normal, because it seems like it wasn't done in that way originally. And obviously I trust that you guys, you've seen 1,000 of these before. So I just wanted you guys to rest assured that, we're doing a quality restaurant. There's nobody going to be drinking in the streets. We're not selling open alcohol to anybody. This is a food-led restaurant where alcohol is only served to those people sitting there, eating there. And we just want to be able to offer some of our cocktails and some of our Mexican wines and Japanese sakes as delivery to people. Generally, if people want to buy booze, they'll just buy on Deliveroo or go to the local supermarket or off license. That's not our business. And then we want to do a breakfast where we're not going to serve alcohol, but a quality breakfast offering, healthy quality breakfast offering. And that's kind of the premise I'm coming from. I don't want people to think that, or be fearful of this. We've operated as a team over 10, 12 years and across the Middle East in 5-star hotels. So we know what it takes to make residents and hotels happy. So I just wanted to leave it at that. And revert back to Joe, and if anybody has questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You have 1 minute.
Well, so I'm going to do my best, but I think the interests of justice mean that I do need an opportunity to finish. I've got 5 points to make.
Mr. Cannon, I'm sorry, you're not running this meeting. I'll give you another minute. You've got 2 minutes to finish. I gave you 15 minutes. We extended it by a couple of minutes because of the interruptions for various reasons. Please stick to the time. Thank you very much.
So, of course I will, but it's really important that you understand what is being said on behalf of my client. A couple more minutes, I don't think it's going to put the meeting in any sort of jeopardy. I understand I'm not running.
Mr. Cannon, I'm asking you, you have spent a lot of time telling us about the wonderful restaurant. It's up to you what you say. You've got a time limit. Please stick to it. I would like this to proceed smoothly and not you choose what time you would like.
Of course.
Okay? So
Yep.
sorry about this, but I've really got to make that clear. You don't seem to, I don't know, you've obviously got lots of experience. You've got a time limit. Now, I've given you another, because of this interruption, I'll give you another couple. So you've already used up your 2 minutes, you get another 2 minutes. I'm sorry, Mr. Cannon, but really, please, you're not running the meeting.
Thank you, sir. I've got 5 points to make. The first is that this is going to be a food-led restaurant, not a pub or a bar. Mr. Teslev's whole background is running high-end restaurants. There's no bar area. In fact, the works that are being done have removed one of the bars that existed in the premises. The second point is, with the exception of the new breakfast offer in the morning, the operation is intended to be within exactly the same hours structure as the present licence authorises and has authorised for years, and on exactly the same premises with no expansion. Again, that is just putting straight some of the points that were made once the application was advertised in some of the representations. The third point is that a comprehensive set of standard operating procedures has been circulated. They can be made conditions if necessary, which will ensure that this premises operates responsibly, particularly vis-a-vis noise, which is the main concern of most of the reps and the main concern of Mr. Teslev. It is a central part of his business plan that he doesn't upset his neighbours, because upsetting neighbours is bad for business. A key example of this, you will have seen in his witness statement, is the strategy for delivery and takeaway. He's created a completely separate entrance on Uxbridge Street for Deliveroo and Uber Eats drivers to come and pick up the food. Nobody lives on Uxbridge Street, and there's a specific bay for motorcycles to park there. So all of the delivery and takeaway will be specifically and strategically dealt with by that extra entrance. There will be no pickups on Farmer Street where the residents live. The fourth point is that the outside front area, the patio as it's known, has a long-standing use for dining. You've seen the photographs of that. Having met with the residents on Tuesday night, we propose a condition under the standard operating procedures that the last reservation out there will be at 10 p.m. That's in the standard operating procedures. There is certainly no suggestion and no possibility of on-street drinking, which is one of the concerns that lots of the residents, including Mr. Foster, who's here today, have given. Alcohol will only be served ancillary to the provision of meals in any event. And the last point is that of the conditions that were circulated in advance by the Royal Borough, the vast majority of those are fine and welcomed, as are the ones suggested by the Hillgate Village Resident Association. But I do have some points about some of the conditions, and I'm sure that we'll move at some point to a discussion about those conditions, and I would welcome the opportunity to reflect on them at that time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cannon. Okay, I think that concludes your case. Now we have questions from the committee. Councillor Healy, Councillor Williams. Councillor Healy, would you like to ask a question or two?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. First of all, could we be told what the expected capacity of the restaurant will be if we grant this variation?
I think that's a matter for the fire authority. There isn't a condition on the licence. I don't know whether the licensing officer can help with whether the fire authority have set a capacity for it, but certainly Mr. Teslev can help with the number of covers that will be provided.
Was the number of covers that I'm after?
Covers, that's fine. Mr. Teslev, can you give us an idea of the number of covers this restaurant will serve?
Hi, everyone again. Yeah, so we're going to be serving around 115 covers all in, which is it's not far away from what it was previously. And we've just, because of COVID and so on, we've also created the distance between the tables that was greater than before, where it was all cramped together before. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
and
fine.
that includes the outside patio seating. Sorry, the front side patio seating,
yeah,
which is weather dependent.
Okay, thank you for that. That's all for the time being.
Could I ask on that point, how many outside do you plan? I appreciate it's weather dependent. What's the maximum tables and chairs?
The maximum there is 20 seats, which is currently what it's always been. We haven't changed the configuration at all, in that sense at all. We've kept the areas where they were, and they were like that, from what I understand from the previous tenant, since probably the late 90s when it was bought by the previous freeholder.
Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Councillor Williams?
Yes, I mean, there were several quite strong objections about the use of the first floor, what's referred to as the first floor terrace. And it would appear that this was not included in the license area before. And I wondered if you had any comments to make on that, and whether you want to modify your proposals.
I'm going to let Mr. Teslev tell you what's planned, if that's the right word, for the small area that you can see in the middle of the screen, which is I think referred to as a first floor terrace.
It's helpful if we could sort of indicate where it is, and if you could say if the Esme, I think it is, has got it wrong. Is that right? Where it's
that square area there. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Hi again. So a couple of things that which might not be so obvious, but unfortunately that drawing is from 1977, I think, and it's not at all to scale, by the way. That top right area that we can see there is much smaller than the front area. It's just nowhere near to scale. That little terrace area that's on the back there that you can see is probably 12 people at a push. And the idea was to be, with COVID and everything else, one day maybe, depending what happens, is to see what we develop around there once we figure out privacy issues and so on, because obviously we wouldn't want our neighbors to look at us or them to look, or guests to have to see them. But again, it's not massively within our plans. It's just something that we understood that this building was already licensed and that we wanted to potentially develop in the future. But we need to clean it up because there's been leaks there. It's been a storage of trash and rats and all kinds of stuff over the years. There's just been a dumping ground from what I understand, for the last 2, 3, 4 years. And previous to that, it was a terrace of some sort because it was all decked out already with flooring.
Yes, I think, well, when we hear from the objectors, we might have a further conversation about that. I think that was my...
yeah, we don't want to upset the neighbors in any way. I mean, at the end of the day, we're here to be there together for many, many years. And hopefully, they'll feel that we're a valuable member of the community with everything we do. And that's what we've accomplished in all the other restaurants, is we start with our neighbors because they become our biggest ambassadors. And hopefully the same thing here, and that we've addressed a lot of the issues they brought up to me the other day.
Yeah, and yes, also on the outside front area.
Yeah.
And again, the residents may have some comments on this. I mean, how, as I say, it seems to have been apparently not in the licence area, but it was clearly used. How late did Giels operate it outside?
So a couple of things on that note. It's within planning. It's in the plans as an area within the quote unquote planning space. Also, what was mentioned earlier with the back area and some of the other areas, there were some strange clauses dating back to, I understand, the 50s involving Mr. and Mrs. Giels having to live on premises and the way it was designed, which the planning said actually was no longer part of it because they realized that they're probably not around anymore. I think they would be 118 years old if they were still operating. In terms of the front area, they've been operating at exactly the same hours as per the license, not later. There's been no complaints, and we wouldn't change that either. So we're not looking to extend it. We're not looking to serve alcohol there after 11 o'clock. Or sell alcohol there, whatever you want to say. I mean, and I know many of the residents have spent a lot of time. They've told me they've spent many an evening there sitting there on the patio when the weather's nice. So it's only that little area which sits directly in front of the bifold doors. You can see the windows and doors. It's only that area. And there's a pavement next to it for people to walk past as well. And we're not encroaching on the pavement.
No,
it's exactly what was there before. We're not changing anything except for making the seats more comfortable and adding some planters there to make it a little bit more organic, which are removable.
Can I just add to that just a couple of points, one of which I've already made already. First of all, we propose as part of our standard operating procedures that there be no reservations on the outside tables there on the patio after 10 p.m. Because we need to be closed by midnight and because of the obvious noise issues that happen thereafter. And as Mr. Teslev says, at the moment we don't have the authorization to serve hot food out there after 11 p.m. in any event, and we don't seek to change that. So those are the rules that currently apply, and we don't seek to change those.
Thank you. Chairman, my final question is, what are the arrangements for smokers, both staff and patrons?
Is that for me to answer, sorry?
It can be, yeah.
Okay, sure. So at the moment, obviously guests who want to smoke can reserve that outside area, which is what they've always done, which is pretty standard. Then we need to create a separate designated smoking area somewhere, which we would suggest doing on Uxbridge Street. Which is away because there's no residents on that block of Oxford Street. It's all commercial. That would be my humble suggestion, but again, it's not up to me. It's what everybody wants. And like Joe said earlier, one of the reasons I love this venue is because personally, I don't like Uber delivery drivers walking through my restaurants when I've got amazing customers and guests in there disturbing everybody. And we've been able to develop this back area, this back entrance on Uxbridge Street, halfway down, pretty much opposite the current parking lot that you guys have created, or RBKC has created, for Notting Hill Gate itself, for the restaurants there. And we're using the same one because it's right next to us. So we're not creating any disturbance there. We created a separate rear entrance. And actually on top of that, we created a whole hot pass line inside the restaurant at the back to ensure food safety, which is really important to us. So I hope that also helps you guys. But I would say that we should have a designated smoking area somewhere away, because I'm not a fan of smoking. My mom died of it, so I'm a very anti-smoker personally. But I can't also dictate what people want to do with their lives.
Thank you. That's all.
I can see that Ms. Lemazurier is taking you, I think, on the screen to the particular location of that Deliveroo door, if we can call it that. It might be worth, Mr. Teslev, you just talking.
Yeah, sure. So that's the front. So that's the frontage that's been there for lots of years, as you can see. And we're actually going to put a little planter that's removable behind the tables here, again, to create less of a disturbance and more privacy for Irene, who lives next door, and her family. I realize it's not perfect, but I'm trying to do the best that I can, given what we have. To the right, if you scroll down a little bit further, to the right, I think it's further, there you can see Uxbridge Street, and where we've created a separate there's a whole separate roadway, and it's 2-lane. So it's to prevent anybody from even coming down Farmer Street. I mean, there should be no need for any of these mopeds or anybody to drive down there. Like I said, trying to do the best we can to help with the residents any way we can. And also one of the reasons we removed the bar that was downstairs and moved the service bar upstairs is in order so guests would wait upstairs for tables if it's not ready yet. So again, they're off the street and not disturbing guests. I mean, it's all trying to create this one self-contained unit. And perfect. So I would suggest having a smoking area, again, just as my opinion, on the far corner. Just a little bit further on the other side of the. I don't know if we can go on to the other side of the road, but I don't know if we're allowed to. But I would say around the corner where there's some glass doors. Yeah, exactly. Kind of there. Yeah, perfect. So I would suggest, again, that's just my humble opinion. Then it's away from everybody. That would be my personal preference, but you of course, it's for the committee to decide these things. At the moment, I don't think I'm even allowed to tell people where to go to smoke. My understanding. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much. That's all, Chairman.
Awesome.
I think you're muted.
Thanks. Yes, I turned myself off. So am I right in thinking that you have got an SOP, Mr. Teslev, for...
Please call me Marcus. Please call me Marcus.
Well, thank you. Well, in this, maybe outside if I come to visit your restaurant.
Hopefully you guys all will, and hopefully we'll make you guys proud.
Just to emphasize the point, of course we are, I think that includes, I should imagine, all the objectors, and everybody's quite happy to see a restaurant there. The question is the circumstances of operation. As I mentioned at the outset, that we have to balance
really fair
commercial needs with
the
residents' needs. And you are in an area where which is very densely populated, and our statement of licensing policy, which I alluded to at the beginning, refers to this, and there are several paragraphs on this question.
Yeah,
you are right there. People are right on top of the restaurant, and the restaurant that you had before, or that was before, is very different to what there is now. So although you can say, well, it's changed the food type, and maybe it's going up market, but it's not quite the same thing as what there was before. But my question was to about the smoking. Is there not an SOP also for staff smoking?
Yes. So I mean, staff I can control, obviously, because they work for me. So two things on that. What was I going to say? On where was I? Sorry, I lost my track. Look, I totally understand your concerns, and I agree with them, and that's also why I've hired, literally, my team are the best in kind, and have amazing training and background behind them, and I'm paying a lot of money to hire those kind of people to work here to make sure that we run an awesome business and that the community is happy with us. And so that's part one. The other side of it, on the staffing side, is our proposal is, first of all, on staff, first of all, when they arrive in the morning. So our prep teams, no matter what happens, will be arriving at 6:30 in the morning to prep the fishes and all the bakeries and everything that we have to do for our tacos in the morning. So from that side of view, it doesn't affect what we're doing, opening for breakfast in terms of the neighborhood. None of them will be allowed to use their phones around there. They won't be standing in the backyard. They're not going to be allowed to smoke in the backyard or any of that. And also, I don't like the smell of that it's not nice for guests either to experience. Not to mention that I don't want anything disturbing our neighbors. When they leave for their breaks, they're to take them in on the Notting Hill Gate area, which is also already super busy, as you know, with thousands of people walking there. And it's less than half a block away. So that's where we're going to instruct them to go for their breaks. So they don't stand outside the restaurant and smoke. They don't stand on their phones. None of that malarkey. And also, it doesn't look good for customers when they turn up. Personally, I just don't like when customers turn up and then they see your chefs or your staff on a mobile phone or smoking a cigarette right outside the restaurant. It sets a really bad example.
Okay, so if we have a condition of some sort which says that you'd submit a policy. We won't say the details, but you submit a policy both for staff etiquette, as you put it quite rightly, and guest arrival and dispersal. So you'd have no problems with a policy about that.
Absolutely, we've already done that. We listened to what all our neighbors said and really took it on board. And I really felt Mr. Foster made a lot of strong points to us the other night, like really fair ones as well. And I tried to take as much of that in consideration with Mr. Papalas when we put together how do we operate this, having heard concerns and fears, and how do we become best in kind while still being able to run a business in COVID, post-Brexit kind of scary stuff. Right. And I feel that we've dealt with all of the questions they have. So yes, and I think we should create together a designated smoking area for guests around the corner.
We'll hear from the objectors, their view of the current situation. And I might have, if that's possible, I'll have to ask my legal advisor. Maybe I might have... We all might have one or two questions for you after we've heard the objectives.
No, please. I'm here for you. I want you guys to be super comfortable and feel confident that I represent you guys and doing a good job.
Could I just confirm, you're saying the staff would arrive at 6:30 in the morning, despite your proposal now to open at 8?
No, we won't open. I'm so sorry. Two different things. To prepare the food for what we're doing, we're going to have a couple of prep chefs that have to come in to prepare and cure the fishes, because and also to prepare the dough for the tacos that we do. There's no noise. They start about 6:30.
So an hour and a half before opening.
No. This is not to do with breakfast. This is just for our main lunch and dinner products to cut the vegetables and stuff.
Yeah, okay. What's important is staff are arriving an hour and a half before formal opening of the restaurant to the public. That's what I'm trying to establish.
Yeah, sorry, yes.
No matter what they do, they're arriving.
Only the chefs, 2 chefs. You won't hear them, you won't see them.
So, right, chefs, 2 chefs.
Yes.
When do you expect the main body of the staff to arrive?
So
if
normally,
late.
Okay, so if we're opening at 8, we would normally want it set up so they would arrive somewhere between 7:15 and 7:30, ready to go. And they're obviously all arriving through the staff door, and they have to use a fingerprint to come in and all that kind of stuff. So again, there should be absolutely no disturbance. They're not driving. They don't have cars. They won't be making
park here anyway. Unless they couldn't park here anyway.
A few of them do, in fairness.
Okay, thanks very much. Well, as I said, I'd like to leave the rest of my questions. We'll have a few till I've heard from the objectors.
For sure.
So, any other questions from my colleagues, Councillor Healy, Williams?
Not at the moment, thank you, Chair.
No, not at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Teslev, Mr. Cannon. And now we'll hear the case for the objectors. It's Ms. Freile, Aubrey, and Mr. Foster.
Councillor Schmettering, can I interject, please?
Yes, sure.
I think the objectors have an opportunity to ask questions of the applicant at this stage.
Yes, sorry. Thank you very much. Yes, I overlooked that. Thank you very much. Objectors, please ask any questions of the applicant.
Hello. Hi. Olivia Aubrey here. Thank you, Mr. Teslev. Actually, I found your arguments very convincing. I was not aware that you met some of other neighbors this week, but and actually I'm going to have to go. So my question is, my only objection is, are you planning on putting bins and ashtrays and things so that it doesn't end up littering the street?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we'll make it awesome. You guys will love it. I mean, to make it not sound silly about that, but the tables will have ashtrays outside if people are smoking. If we are granted a designated smoking area around the corner, for sure, we'll put something there. We'll keep it super clean. That you can trust me, 100% guaranteed on that. What was the other question about after smoking? Sorry. The bins. The bins. So. Yeah, so the bins, the way the bins are set up is we're using the Royal Borough's waste disposal service, and everything comes from the back kitchen entrance. Nothing goes through the front, and they're taken. And the area that's been given to us is actually, strange enough, it's located in front of Pret a Manger. There's an area. So it's actually on Notting Hill Gate itself. So there won't be any bins sitting outside the restaurants, no garbage, none of that. And we begin 4 slots a day so that we can take stuff out evenly. There'll be no bins last thing at night. There'll be no bins first thing in the morning either. And we're actually using the borough's service that they've given to us.
Okay.
And there's no trucks coming through there. Sorry, no trucks for us coming through that area.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Apologies, I have to go because I have to get to work. But I look forward to trying the restaurant, and it sounds like you're taking a lot of precautions so that neighbors are not bothered.
We're going to do our best, and we look forward to inviting you all as soon as we're allowed to by COVID to come in and pre-trial the restaurant and give us some feedback on the food and bits and bobs. So we'll do the best that we can, and so far we've been very fortunate to have wherever we've operated to have the community support us.
Thank you.
Best of luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Aubrey.
Mr. Teslev.
Thank you, Ms. Aubrey.
Could I at this point actually make a point, because COVID keeps coming up, which is fair enough, given we're all suffering from it, as it were, the conditions. This is a license. We are considering a permanent license. So whilst there might be exceptional circumstances for COVID-19 dispensations like the Business and Planning Act, whilst that might provide some exceptional circumstances, we are here to consider the situation as if there were no COVID. And any special situations are, of course, dealt with under the Business and Planning Act. So I just want to make that point clear.
Yeah.
Just state that point, that we are discussing a permanent license, regardless who is operating it. This is the thing. It's always the problem. You get an operator who looks terrific and he does a fantastic job. A few years later, they leave, and then somebody else takes over the license. Yeah. I don't have to.
No, it's totally fair and good point. And actually, the whole point to us making this application is, in fact, because of that we don't want to be relying on that, and we want to do the right thing the right way.
Right.
Best practices across the board. And that's exactly why we made this application. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Teslev. Good to hear. So, Ms. Fraley or Foster, Mr. Foster, any queries?
No, nothing from me. Just wait for my turn. Thank you very much.
Who was that?
Mr. Foster? That was Mr. Foster, yes.
Well, do ask him. Oh, you don't want to ask any questions?
No, I'm just happy to go ahead with my presentation in a few minutes' time.
Okay, so Ms. Fraley?
Same here.
Okay, well, that completes the questions. Thanks, and we have the objector's case now.
Can I switch off, or?
Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you.
All microphones should be turned off, if possible, unless you're speaking, which means mine as well, except I keep forgetting to turn it back on again. Objector, who would like to speak first?
I'm happy to go.
Okay, go on then.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving us residents the opportunity to explain our concerns. I will try to be quick. I already submitted a very long submission. I live in number 6 Farmer Street, so this is the house next door to the premises. I'm speaking on my behalf, but also on behalf of many of my fellow neighbors who live in Farmer Street and from whom you've heard already by way of the many objections that have been sent in relation to this application. I like to start by saying that I have the utmost respect for Mr. Teslev. I think it's pretty clear that he's a very talented and diligent professional, and I haven't got the slightest doubt about his good intentions. However, I think it is not until now, having spoken with many of us, that he's realizing how disruptive his project could be for our street. I have seen his presentation. I love the concept of Los Mochis. I would love to go to that restaurant, but the location is just not right. I mean, I read in his presentation that in terms of positioning, the vision is sits close to institutions such as the Ivy, Cecconi's, and Gold. And well, indeed, they are all well-established, very successful places. And I am sure that Mr. Teslev and his team can create something very similar with Los Mochis. But I like to stop for a second here and think of the location of all these places. I mean, these are in very busy commercial streets, completely different to our quiet residential farmer street. I know these restaurants, and I've been there many times. I actually think that Gold was the last restaurant I went to before the pandemic. And I imagine living next door to Gold, and I want to start packing up my things and move homes. I mean, these type of venues have nothing to do with the previous restaurant that rented the premises. Gil's was a family restaurant which opened 6 days a week to offer just lunch and dinner. Los Mochis, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is planning to open 7 days a week, starting from 8. And Ms. Teslev already mentioned that the staff will, even if it's two chefs, they will arrive at 6:30 up until midnight, and it will attract a very different crowd than Gil's did. We will have a lounge and bar area in the first floor with sofas and low tables, top-notch tequila and cocktails menu. Of course, I'm not saying, and I'm sure it will not be some sort of nightclub, but it will be a food and drinking venue over the weekends, just as much as Gold or similar places are. And it will be trendy among young people. It will be super successful and extremely busy in no time. And this kind of venue is just totally unsuitable for Farmer Street. I'm not sure how familiar the committee is with our street, but it is a purely residential street and a thoroughfare for school children that go to Fox Primary and to Holland Park School, among all the schools and nurseries in the area. There is elderly people, one just right in front of the premises. There's around 20 children living in our street, including our 3 children who are 5, 3, and 1 years old. The street, just as the other streets in the Hillgate village, is very narrow, and the noise reverberates from building to building. The village is just a one-way traffic area that gets super easily congested, and the noise and disruption that a venue like Los Mochis could bring is just immense. And we live next door, so we're especially affected by this. It's not clear to me what the situation is with the first floor terrace. So I was speaking with the licensing team yesterday, and it is not clear if that first floor terrace is licensed or not. All I know is that it has never been used to serve customers since I've been here, and I've been in contact with the previous tenants to this house. And that terrace and the courtyard in the rear of the premises have only been used by staff, never to serve customers. I mean, I'm not going to repeat my representations as to how much the use of that terrace could affect our family life and how could it disturb our rest, our work, our privacy and everything. But I would just like this procedure to clarify what's the status in relation to this terrace and the courtyard, and whether or not it is licensed and whether or not it can be used to serve customers. Thank you so much.
You're muted, Dory.
Yeah, I'm going to turn this off. Mr. Phelan, thank you very much, Mr. Councillor Williams. Mr. Phelan, you had your hand up. You'd like to say something.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify that the first floor terrace and the courtyard do not form part of the licensed area currently. I did explain in the opening statement, and again, it's definitely not part of the licensed area, both the first floor terrace and the rear courtyard.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mazurier.
Thank you, Chair. Can Mr. Phelan also clarify whether the forecourt was part of the licence area before as well? I know it was used, but was it part of the licence area as is now, please?
No problem. Is this the front of the premises that's referred to? That's the outside correct. Terrace, that area there, yeah?
Yes.
That did not form part of the licensed area either, just to be clear.
All right, so just to be clear, the 3 areas, the first floor roof terrace, the ground floor courtyard and the front patio forecourt area aren't currently licensed.
That's correct. The current license does not cover them in terms of licensable activities.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just made a note of that. Mr. Foster, would you like to make your presentation, make your case?
Sorry, Chairman, it's Anne Wright from Governance.
Yes.
Hi, I just want to check that Mr. Teslev is with us because he did lose connection for a bit there.
Hi, yes, I don't know what happened there. My internet dropped out, but I'm back again.
Great. Okay, thank you.
I also got guests waiting in the lobby. Was that Mr. Teslev trying to reconnect?
Yes, it was.
I think it might have been.
Back in. He's with us.
Okay, because that thing hasn't gone away. Right. Okay. Mr. Teslev, you've raised your hand.
Hi again. Yes, we have no plans to develop the courtyard, and there has not been any discussions about developing the courtyard for guests.
Okay. Just make a note there. So we'd only be talking about the terrace, first floor terrace. Is that correct?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Of the rear areas.
Yes.
There's some sort of first floor terrace area. That's the one you are planning to use.
At the moment, I would like to do something there, maybe in the future, but I haven't set up exactly what it is. At some point, it was definitely used previously because it had all the setup there previously that we've removed now. It's, ultimately, I want my neighbors to be happy, and I want to find a way to work around that. So, I'm sure we can find a way to work on that with a timing or whatever else, but I don't think it was clear from the license plans what the situation was there.
Okay, thank you. Right. Mr. Foster. No more hands up. Any more hands up? Just a minute.
Oh.
Any more hands up? Sorry. Mr. Teslev, do you want to take your hand down? Anyway,
Okay,
Mr. Foster, do start.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Chair, and thank you very much for the committee for giving the residents the chance to discuss this proposal. I've been a resident in this area for over 40 years and have been a regular visitor to the very successful restaurants that have run in the area over that period of time, as I'm sure many of the committee members have as well. For example, the Gilles restaurant, which was run by the family, was hugely successful. We used to go there every Saturday with our kids and meet loads of people from the area. The Malabar was, again, a local restaurant because the lady who ran it lived next door. So, she obviously was, dependent upon the business from the residents. Sally Clark's, Costa's, these are all local restaurants that are populated continuously by the local. If you want to ever find my cousins who live around the corner, you went round to Costa's because you found them eating there. So when I saw this proposal arriving in my inbox, I was completely bemused. It claims to be a neighborhood restaurant. I simply can't understand how that could possibly be the case. Reading through the application, outside dining, up till midnight, closing at 12:30 once time people have gone away. Breakfast was going to start at 7, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, how could this possibly be perceived as being a neighborhood restaurant in Hillgate Village? I mean, the only application that I can remember in the area which was quite so unneighborly was the application which some of the older members will remember, was the idea of turning the Coronet Cinema into a McDonald's with all the trucks coming down Uxbridge Street. So when we had the good fortune to meet Mr. Teslev at an extended meeting on Monday, I was completely bemused by how he could possibly have put this application in and thought it would be perceived by the neighbours as being neighbourly. I'm still somewhat confused by that. Well, I don't quite understand it. And then, of course, we had a mass of documents arriving. We had 88 pages arriving on Monday, which I have been through. I find it very hard to see the connection between a neighbourhood restaurant in Hillgate Village, along with open-air barbecues for 300 people seated and discos in the Middle East. I'm absolutely delighted that a man of his stature should wish to come to Hillgate Village. And I hope this restaurant, if it's granted a license, is hugely successful. But the idea that you can have outside seating with people there till 12 o'clock within the context of the Hillgate Village as it is and it has always been, it is simply beyond my understanding. The idea that he could ask for people to be leaving at 12 o'clock, I mean, again, I'm utterly bemused by this. And we all know what happens when people are outside on, drinking and eating until 11 o'clock or whatever it happens to be. We all live with this on a day-by-day basis. And how this can consider to be neighbourly is, I say, I'm completely bemused. And I don't think that Mr. Teslev appears to be a gentleman who is, is doing this through vindictiveness. So I sort of I just don't understand it. And this is even more exceptionally correct when you look at the number of minors in the area. This is an area which is dominated by families, young families, older residents. It's not the sort of population that goes to the restaurants that he has itemized. If you read the publicity that he's put out, as the previous objector has addended to the documents, I mean, to think that this is going to attract, families with 3- and 6-year-old children to come is, again, clearly not the case. And I think Mr. Cannon has made some points, which he is, I think I need to refer to, which is that the residents in this area are absolutely delighted to have successful restaurants. I've mentioned a few. They participate. We go to all these restaurants all the time. And the reason that Sally Clark's, etc., was successful was because the neighbours went. So on a cold January Wednesday evening, my cousins and me would be having dinner in Costa's. It flourished for 30 to 35 years. And that's not what you're going to get if people have, get cheesed off because the noise levels. And a last point to the council. When Tony Blair had his misfortunate idea that it was a really good idea to have late licensing all the time, Kensington stood out like a beacon of common sense, whereby they restricted outside drinking establishments and closed many, many, many of them down. And you only have to look into the newspapers to see what happens in places like Kingston on a regular Saturday evening. And the idea that having people wandering around at 12:15 on a Wednesday evening with people going to work and school the following day from this is simply beyond my understanding. And so if Kensington was to start to wholesale give licenses for people to have drinking establishments outside late at night, then the whole of the good work that it's done over the last X years to make sure that he's not in the front page of the newspapers will be gone. So that's really it. I mean, I want this to succeed. I think the principle looks fantastic. I'm looking forward to coming along and visiting it, but we just have to control the noise. And the idea that I will, which was put forward at our meeting on Monday, which was that I will simply do my best to curtail the noise, is just not good enough. The idea that people can go at 10 and be out till 12, I mean, that's just simply not good enough. And by the way, I'm just not sure whether I can introduce this, but I have received a note from somebody who can't be at this meeting to say that they have objected 15 times in the last 5 years to noise coming from Geels. And the noise abatement people, again, I'm not sure if this is the right word for it, have said that they only keep these objections for 12 months. So that's why they are not on the record. But the idea that there have not been complaints about Geels is simply untrue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, councillors, for the time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Foster, and thank you for keeping to time, well within time. Mr. Teslev, I see your hand up. Your turn will come to make a comment or ask a question after the committee has spoken to the objectors. Councillor Williams and Councillor Healy, do keep your hand up, Mr. Teslev, so I remember that you want to say something, unless it was unintentional. So, Councillor Williams, Councillor Healy. Say Councillor Williams first. Anything?
Yes. Yes. My question to the two residents is, what hours did Geels actually operate, both inside and for the outside area at the front as well?
Hello, this is Irene. So as far as I remember, Geels, they started probably at around noon. Mm-hmm. So they were only serving lunch, and at night they would stay. I can't recall, but probably 11:30.
Fine. And the outside area, how late were people sitting at the tables at the front?
Sorry, so there were people sitting at the front, definitely. I think there were 4 tables.
Mm. Miss Councillor Williams, can I interject here? I don't live as near to the Geels as I used to, although we're still within easy crawling distance. The question here, I think, is, and I think the chairman made a really good point, is that in granting licenses, you basically grandfather the changes onto other people who may come along. And I don't think any of us, I mean, this is my bemusement to find a man looks as honest and as straightforward and as businesslike as Mr. Teslev putting in this application. I was completely confused. And the point, and I think we've had this from the lawyer end of the market, the idea that there haven't been complaints about the noise levels at Jules is simply untrue. And the other point, which has not been made and has been actually sort of slightly convoluted, has been changed, has been twisted, is the fact that Jules in the last few years was an abject failure. And it was only a success when it was run by the family. And when the family ran it, it was, you know, hugely successful. What didn't open late because the clients were not going to stay late. You know, it's fairly obvious. So the idea that we can compare, you know, a very unsuccessful restaurant which had completely cheesed off the local neighbours, as I pointed out from the message I got from Mr. Storer about the 15 complaints he made in the last 5 years, at least 15 complaints, by the way, compared to the complaints, or none of them, that used to come from Gilles and the Malabar and Costa's, where they were symbiotic with the neighbours, because that's who their clients were.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Healy.
No questions, thank you, Mr.
Actually, Ms. Friday, I've got a question just to clarify. You mentioned a gold restaurant. I'm aware of a gold, but as no street address is given, could I ask where that one is?
Yes, that is in Portobello Road.
Okay.
So I wouldn't compare Portobello Road to Farmer Street, frankly.
Well, okay. People do live above the shops. I even went to look at a flat there many, many years ago. Anyway, this is a difficult one. I mean, I'd like to ask the objectors the questions. I mean, you had this extensive meeting with Mr. Teslev, and I don't know, you know, who else was there, maybe Mr. Cannon or somebody. But what was the outcome of this? Because the applicant did say that that's your plural, your objections were taken into account, and that they're happy to apply conditions that you basically asked for, most of them anyway. So what is actually your view of this meeting, Mr. Foster, and indeed Ms. Fraley?
I was absolutely delighted with the meeting. And I say this just added to my bemusement by the whole situation. Mr. Teslick listened very carefully and did his level best to answer all the questions which were put up in a most positive fashion. And what has been interesting as non-veterans, particularly of the licensing board and its committee and its hearings, is to see the extensive nature of alterations that occur to the application that have arrived in my inbox over the last 3 days, including one that arrived at 4:38 yesterday afternoon. Now, there's nothing wrong with that at all, but it does indicate that the attitude that was obvious in the original documentation has started to change as the management and as their backers have begun to realize what it is that they have proposed in context of Farmer Street. And so, you know, there are plenty of changes they're putting in, discussions, many of which are exactly as asked for. But what, you know, my point is a more general and broader one, which is that the idea, the concept of having people outside making the usual dining and wining and having a really nice time noises at 11:30 on a Wednesday evening before work or school is simply, you know, it does not fit with a neighbourhood restaurant. And
well,
those sorry, Mr. Chairman, those concerns were not addressed. And I said to Mr. Teslick that I would be asking the question and making the point. Tell me how you're going to control people having dinner outside at 11:15 on a summer's evening. I would be extremely interested to know the answer. My answer is that you don't have them. It's that simple.
Thank you. But the previous, I appreciate that the previous owners, the previous restaurant wasn't getting lots of customers, but perhaps when they were, I mean, they had people there at 11 o'clock, didn't they? Or the place to shut at 11?
Well, they certainly could have done. But as has been pointed out, the number of tables was, I think, was said 4. So let's be generous and say 4. 4 times 4 is, we're talking about 12 to 16 as opposed to 20. And what we're talking here about is grandfathering in a situation, as I mentioned before. And the idea that you could grandfather into people who would be much less neighbourly than Mr. Teslick is looking to be, with having, 12 o'clock closing, etc., is simply inconceivable. And, my point is very straightforward and clear that, let's make Mr. Teslick's restaurant the most successful restaurant in the area by, we'll all go there and we'll all enjoy it. But if you've got kids who are going to school and people going to work, you can't have people, outside at 12, 11:15, 11:30 at night making a heck of a din. It seems to me to be straightforward.
Okay, thanks very much. If colleagues don't have any more questions, I'd just like to hear from Mr. Teslev now, please. Or applicant can ask questions of the objectors. Mr. Teslev?
Hi again. Thank you both, Irene and Mr. Foster, for your comments. I believe, and I tried very hard with my team to deal with the concerns from the other evening. The only thing is I sort of wanted to ask and say was, we're not asking to change what's not already there. We're just asking if we can bring alcohol to go with it when we deliver food, not in any other way. That's the only difference that we're asking for here in those terms, and to open earlier for breakfast without selling alcohol, which technically doesn't need the license. In terms of, is it familiar for the area? All I know is that my niece and nephew literally live across the road on the other side on Ladbroke Grove number 32, as do many of my business partners and elsewhere. We're right around there with all kids. And this is the kind of food that their kids love to eat. First of all, they want healthy breakfast options that don't exist. And they love the idea of tacos, and like food has changed a little bit. Just literally parallel to Farmer Street, there's another road where there's 2 restaurants, Mazzy and Susie Trot, 2 great restaurants as well. Actually, there's a breakfast place there, funnily enough. But they have a huge outdoor courtyard with some 60, 70 seats that serve also to the same hours as we do. And I think they're doing a great job, and hopefully we'll do the great job and you'll really like it. I just wanted to sort of point out that if that's just next door to us, how are they different from us in that sense? And also in terms of Gold and Portobello Road, opposite Gold on Portobello Road, it's hugely residential, and there's those 2 huge blocks right opposite there, like the chairman pointed out. We will work and we'll put our SOPs in place to make you confident and feel good, and confident that we will operate in a manner that's expected of us as a neighborhood restaurant. But ultimately, all I'm saying is food tastes have changed a little bit, and we're offering something that's just a little bit different. And we want to be friendly with neighbors. We're not asking for any more time to sell alcohol. We're not asking for any of those things. And I want you just to feel really comfortable and rest assured that that's the case. And again, we're trading exactly as Mark Fuller and the previous owner was, who took over in 1998, they told me. So at least the family haven't been involved, the Giles family, at least from 1997/98, they have not been present in any shape, way, or form. And having spoken to both those parties, they don't even know the Mr. and Mrs. Giles. So likely they're from the 70s. But again, that's all I know. And thank you again so much for your time. And I know I'll win you guys over once we get operating, and we'll show you what we can do. And hopefully that'll give you guys the confidence. And please ask me anything else you need.
Thank you, Mr. Teslev. What complaints or not we've had from Gold, we're not here to discuss the Gold restaurant.
No, exactly. No, that's a good point.
I was just curious to know which Golds.
It's a Portuguese restaurant on Portobello Road.
Yes, I'm familiar with the artwork on the outside.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy.
Yes, but we're not discussing that. Mr. Cannon would like to ask a question or make a point. Mr. Cannon? You're on mute as well now. It's the song of Zoom, song of Teams.
It is.
You're on mute. Please unmute.
Exactly. Thank you. It was I wanted to ask a couple of questions. I don't think I'm entitled to make points, but I would like to ask a couple of questions of Ms. Freile and Mr. Foster, if I may. So.
Well, please go ahead.
Thank you. Can I start with Ms. Freile, please? When you made your presentation, I understand that you had a concern about the first floor terrace, and that's understandable given where you live. And you also said some things about the location of this particular premises not being right generally, but you understand, I know, this is a variation application. And I wondered if you had any particular concerns. I didn't hear any about the suggestion that we be permitted to sell alcohol off the premises with delivery of food. That presumably that is not a particular concern of yours. Am I right?
You're right. That is not.
Cool, thank you. And then the same point really about the suggestion of opening at 8 a.m. for breakfast. Again, presumably that's not a particular concern of yours. Is that right?
Well, that is a bit more of a concern. Of course, we live next door, and we used to hear a lot of Gil's kitchen stuff, and it was pretty disruptive as well. So having that from the very early morning, that is a concern.
Okay, but you've seen, haven't you, that Mr. Teslev's done quite a lot of work to the kitchen, insulating it and so on. You've seen that, have you? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I have, and of course,
it's quite an upgrade, is the point.
Yeah, we'll wait and see how that works, and if there's any problem, I'm sure we can work it out. My main point here is the use of the first floor terrace, which, as we discussed, that was never used before to serve customers. It was used by the staff, and that would change things a lot for us. So that's our concern, and I would just want to clarify what's the status regarding that terrace, whether it's licensed or not, and that's the plan. So far, the only thing that I've heard from Mr. Teslev is that he's not sure what to do with that. So first, he was planning to use it as a smoking area. Then it was to have a couple of tables there, and now he cannot say what his plans are in relation to that terrace, and that, of course, is a concern to us. That's our main concern. So it would be great if, out of this procedure, it was clear what they can or cannot do in that terrace. But as I said, it was never used before to serve customers.
That's a very clear answer. Thank you, Ms. Fraley. But can I just check, how long have you lived next door to 2 to 4 Farmer Street? When did you move in?
So we moved in 2018 in March. I've been in touch with the previous tenants, so I have assurances from tenants back to 2011, and even before that. I could get you exact dates that they all have confirmed that that terrace has never been used to serve customers.
Well, there's no need to do that. I think what the committee will be particularly interested in is your own knowledge and that, rather than what other people have told you at various points. But that's helpful. And when you moved in 2018, I think it's right, isn't it, that Gilles was up and running and in the normal way. So you knew you were moving in next to a restaurant, basically. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, that is absolutely right. And I, of course, assume that is the case when I move in here.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Those are my questions for Ms. Freile. I have just a couple for Mr. Foster, if I may.
Could I, Mr. Cannon, before you do that, could I just make a point that I think Ms. Freile is perfectly entitled to ask and get advice from previous residents of the property.
Of course.
If they have something to report, then I think we should hear about it.
Yes.
So that's fine. So, I just want to make that point. So it's perfectly reasonable for Ms. Freile to ask the previous residents.
Of course.
And report what you heard.
Yeah, no, I was making no criticism of that, only making the point I think that you would attach more weight to her own observations than you would to hearsay, which I think is self-evident, but I'm sure that's not controversial. But I take that point. Shall I ask Mr. Foster?
Yes, please do. Go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Foster. Hello again.
Hi, I'm all ears.
Good stuff. First of all, a similar question for you about the variation itself. So again, I have understood your position in respect of the style of the restaurant and so on and so forth. But in terms of the proposition of adding off sales of alcohol to the delivery of takeaway meals and so on, I don't detect any particular concern on your behalf for that aspect of the application. Have I got that right? Like Ms. Fraley?
I don't like to repeat myself too often, but this again adds to my bemusement by the application, because Mr. Tesla's done, I thought, a spectacularly good job in redesigning that back entrance. I think that's a fantastic piece of work. I mean, unfortunately, I think that there are real problems with that, and they actually come back to the heart of what I'm talking about, which is the apparent complete lack of understanding of how Hillgate Village operates. If anybody knows anything about the motorbike bays, they'll know that they are full.
Can I just interrupt you for a moment, Chair, through you? I'm asking particularly not about whether deliveries should be allowed of food, because of course that's already an entitlement to the license, but specifically about whether Mr. Teslev should be authorised to sell alcohol alongside those meals that are already being sold. So not so much about the general position of selling food by Deliveroo or Uber, but about whether he should have the authorisation to add alcohol to those. You understand that's the variation.
Point understood, Mr. Foster. It's basically adding alcohol to the existing off sales.
I think that what they've suggested is extremely sensible, and is in addition is absolutely of the moment. This is the way it is, and I every time I talk to Mr. Teslev, I simply can't understand why the original application was the way it was, because he's thought long and hard about this and has put in place a considerable expense to rectify what would have otherwise been an extremely difficult situation. So no, I have no objection to that whatsoever.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And then the other question, same sort of thing. You understand that one of the three main aspects of this application is to open 2 hours earlier in the morning for breakfast, or not alcohol sales or anything of that nature, no licensable activities at that time, but to offer a breakfast offering. And you've seen, I think, the menus. I haven't detected any particular concern about that suggestion from you. I've heard what Ms. Friday says about that. You heard, I think, as well, that she would wait and see how that worked. But again, is the answer the same, that in that particular respect you don't have a concern?
No, it's not. I didn't, because we were, as with all Council and Chelsea application hearings, we were restricted to 10 minutes to the second, and therefore I was restricting what I had to say. I think that causes potentially huge difficulties. Again, this is what is real to what is written on paper in some office in the West End or wherever it happens to be. We all know what the reality is. We have it all the time. When the guys arrive, they have a cigarette, they have a chat, they deal with stuff, and setting it up. I mean, it was, again, I don't like to repeat myself, but when this application came in, it was for a 7 o'clock kickoff. It's like, I mean, I just saw that and I thought to myself, that's completely ridiculous. It's like 7 o'clock means they're going to arrive at 6, which means that there is no sleeping time for the guys in the street whatsoever. Okay, that's been binned and it's now 8. But even then you're saying that people are going to arrive at 6:30. So there's going to be, they're going to arrive, they're going to unlock the doors, they're going to discuss last night's takings. This could cause extreme difficulties, and the noise levels will be huge. And with all the miners in the area, I think a breakfast offering is a fantastic idea. I think it's really great. I mean, I have no objection to it whatsoever. But the practical realities of people pitching up, as I think was made before, the restaurants that have been compared in the PR blurb that have been put out are on busy venues with people arriving all times of day and night. It's not a quiet neighborhood with kids going to school, people going to work, etc., etc. So yes, I have significant difficulties. If it was in my street, I wouldn't be at all happy about it.
But you've seen, haven't you, Mr. Foster, that since our meeting on Tuesday, the detailed SOP, standard operating procedures that deal with, for example, a particular protocol for moving furniture, a protocol for staff arriving, all of those things. So you can see that Mr. Teslev has taken quite significant steps to meet your concerns about that early morning issue. And it's not 7 o'clock anymore, it's 8. Presumably you're reassured by those steps.
I have been reassured continuously by the discussions of Mr. Teslev. Every time a comment is brought up, you know, I'm reassured. I mean, the one I'm not reassured about is his promise to do the best he can to abate the noise when people are leaving at 11:30 on a Wednesday evening. And, you know, that is one that, you know, there has been no resolution to that. I mean, the idea that the last booking would be at 10 is completely unacceptable, because it means people are going to leave at 12. I mean, it's that simple.
Again, you've seen, just on that point, it may be that no resolution is possible. Again, you've seen his SOPs about escorting people to Notting Hill Gate, making sure they don't go down Farmer Street, about being reminded to leave quietly, signs, about being reminded on booking that it's a quiet neighbourhood, all of those things. Yeah. Those things are all, they go some way, don't they, to reassure you that customers leaving at night, just as they did from Gilles, won't cause a disturbance. Well, that must be fair, mustn't it?
They show a deep intent to listen to what the neighbours have said.
Yeah.
Have said.
Yeah.
But you and I know the reality. We live in a street that has a pub and a very popular restaurant. And what has happened is, because there has been no plan as how to abate the noise has occurred. The residents have had to complain vociferously to the council, to the police, to the owners and the managers repeatedly over the years, and the end result has been that the outside space has been shut down. And, you know, if you can assure me and all the other residents about how you're going to make sure that it doesn't happen again, then I will be the first person to be delighted.
Those are different premises, as I understand it. You're talking about premises on your street, is that right?
That happen to be my local experience, which is only 400 metres from where I'm talking about.
I just can't reassure you about the running of those premises. I don't know anything about them.
They can't. No, absolutely. And I mean, this is not that the people are bad people. It's just that people have a few beers, they make a bit of noise, they have a bit of a laugh, and the neighbours are woken up at 11:30 because they're going to work next day. You know.
Sorry. Who's that? Mr. Yeah, I mean, I think we get the point. I think we've just got to focus on this particular case.
Yes, exactly.
And you know, that's what we're obviously going to do. Now, yes. Mr. Teslev has a question. Mr. Cannon, you can question.
No, I haven't. So I've got one more for Mr. Foster, but I agree with you that if we could stick to the questions that I'm asking rather than dealing with other premises, that would move things quicker. But I just have one more for Mr. Foster, and then, if I may, another one for Ms. Fraile, which I've just had some instructions on in the meantime about the rear terrace, having heard what she said about that. Mr. Foster, it was just the point about complaints, and you said that it was untrue, I think, to say that there'd been no complaints. I don't think, although tell me if I'm wrong, it was the licensing officer at the beginning of the hearing that said that there had been no complaints for 24 months. What was it your suggestion that was untrue, that he was telling an untruth?
That would be the least thing that I would possibly do.
I didn't think you would, exactly.
I was passing on, and Mr. Chairman, I have no idea whether this is something that I'm allowed to do or is in, and again, the legal officer can make the point. I got a text message from Mr. Storer, who was part of the meeting on Thursday, who I think is listening in to this meeting live, I think, because he couldn't come to the meeting itself and make his own objection. And I was just passing on. He asked me to pass on that point.
Okay, well, please do. I mean, yeah.
So that's the only question. I mean, okay. And all I know is what happens, you know, when we have been involved. And by the way, Mr. Khan, if I can make the point, I'm in no way suggesting that the area that the people that I'm talking about are similar or have any connection to what might or might not happen in Farmer Street. What I'm saying is that an experience of 40 years of living in the area with neighbourhood restaurants, the reality is that when this sort of thing happens, if there is not reassurances and if the management is not absolutely on the ball, and hopefully they are going to be on the ball. What will happen is that if you have people out there at 11:30, there will be complaints. The police will be called.
Well, Mr. Foster, can I just reassure you on this point? I mean, we understand the point, I think.
Right.
And it's clear, and there's every sympathy on all sides for this. The thing is that we have had no complaints for the previous establishment. I don't know how relevant that is when you have a change of restaurant like this. It's a question. Is it relevant or not? I'm not sure it is, but there've been no complaints. And under the licensing rules, we have to state what complaints these premises have attracted. I would use this opportunity to make the point: if people have complaints, don't complain on next door. Complain to the council.
Yes,
that's the point. Complain to the council, not on next door. I mean, I'm not saying anyone's complained about Los Mochis or any other restaurant about this, but people complain on next door about things which they get a result if they actually talk to the local councillors or the council. So that's what I say. And furthermore, and perhaps I can reassure the objectors, if there is a problem, the license can always be called in for review. I mean, you have to have, I know it's not straightforward. You can't just snap your fingers, but if there's evidence, you can call it for a review. And I have to tell you, I'm not suggesting this would happen here at all, but I can tell you that we've even gone to the extent of shutting places down because the management was so bad. They were given several chances. It was so bad, we had to shut the place down. So I can assure you that you do have recourse. Well, we try to do this as well as we can to satisfy as many people as we can, but you have recourse. This is the point. You may have to suffer with it. That's what I want to say. Mr. Teslev. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Cannon, have you finished?
Not quite. That's very helpful. Just on the point about the relevance of complaints, I think the only relevance of a lack of complaints is this, that it shows that a restaurant can be run from this location without giving rise to complaints. I think that's the only relevance. I take your point about change of management, so on and so forth. It doesn't rule out consideration of what will happen, but it does show at least that it is possible to run a restaurant without causing concern to the neighbours. I just had one question for Ms. Fraley, if she's still there, just about the rear terrace in light of what she said, really just to find out what the position is in the hope that we could come to some kind of accommodation. Ms. Fraley, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
If it were the case that there were a condition restricting use of that rear terrace to 10 p.m, so by 10 p.m. it would to be cleared and quiet, would that satisfy your concern about its use? I mean, obviously you've heard Mr. Teslev is going to do some work to that terrace if he's allowed to use it to make sure that you're not overlooked and so on. Hopefully some soundproofing will be part of that too. But if there was a 10 p.m. cut off to that terrace, would that go some way to reassuring you that this could happen?
I'm afraid it wouldn't, because if that terrace would be open to. I mean, if you're going to keep it as a smoking area, that would be open. And even if you put up a fence or you try to isolate that, it would still be open. There would still be noise. There would still be smoke. And it is literally like inside our patio.
Sorry.
It is so close to our bedrooms, to our living room, to our kitchen. It's literally inside our house.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I suppose what I was asking about was the time, that obviously we all have an expectation of more quiet in the evening than we do in the day, or in the late evening than in the early evening. And I just wondered if it were to be not used at all after 10 p.m, whether that would be a reasonable compromise, given that you have a restaurant next door to you and so on.
Yeah, and I said it wouldn't. So that space is not supposed to be used for serving customers. That is an internal space. That is a private space. And the previous restaurant didn't use it. We heard noises from the restaurant, but that's fine. We accept that. We moved next door to a restaurant, but that space was never used to serve customers. And there's already an outdoor space on street that can be used. So the use of that terrace is not essential to running a successful and profitable restaurant. So no, even a time restriction wouldn't address our concerns.
Understood. That's a fair answer. Thank you. I mean, we're not going to agree on that. You understand, Mr. Tesla thinks he would like to use that area. You say he doesn't need to, but at least I've asked you, and we've got.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Is that it?
Those are my questions. Thank you,
Mr. Teslev. Your hand is up.
Hi.
Last question.
Yes. First of all, thank you everybody for the time and caring so much about what we're doing and what we can do. I just wanted to say two quick things for Ms. Fairley. First of all, in terms of the noise from the kitchen and people coming early. Oh, sorry, that was Mr. Foster who brought that in. The staff are not going to be talking inside. They'll be talking inside our venue, not on the terrace or backyards or in front. And they're not going to be opening the windows like the previous operator was doing in those kitchens, because hygienically it's crazy that they open windows and let flies and things into places like into kitchens. This is just my personal opinion how we run things. And so I want you to be fully comfortable, regardless of anything else, that 100% we're together on that. Okay. And I would just say that, look, literally next door to us, Mazzy, as you know, is there with the seats of 80 people outside until 11, 12 o'clock as well. Same license as us. And it's literally around the corner from us. I mean, literally, it's maybe 50 meters away, 40 meters as the bird flies on the parallel street. So they do a job that doesn't upset the neighbors, and we will work together to make sure that you guys are all happy. Just wanted to let you guys know that, and thank you all so much for your time, and I'm always here for you guys.
Thank you. Well, Muzzy is, yes, it's behind at number 12, I think. 12.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
So depends how you define the corner. If you take your side entrance, it's around the corner.
No. I was saying as a bird crow flies, or whatever you call it. Sorry.
Okay. I think everybody in the area will know where it is. Well, thank you, Mr. Teslev. I think that Mr. Cannon's got his hand up again, or is that from before?
That's a legacy hand, as we call it. My apologies. I should have left it.
Just checking. Right. Now, what we're going to do is shortly...
Lindsay wants to have a word.
I know. Shortly, we'll have a break of about a few minutes, which I'll define. But before we get there, Ms. Lemuzurier would like to speak. Our legal advisor.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Cannon, can I just clarify a couple of points with you before we go on break, please?
Of course.
Thank you. So you've withdrawn the late night refreshment outdoors. So that effectively means that your takeaways are going to end at 11 p.m. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So would you be tweaking your off sales to 11 p.m. rather than 11:30?
It's a good question. I can take instructions on that. That hadn't occurred to me. But do you mean the off sales of alcohol?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. So I'm assuming if your takeaway is going to stop at 11 p.m, then you won't need off sales beyond 11 p.m.
I see the point. May I check in the break? I hadn't.
Yeah, that's fine. The other thing I just wanted to clarify. So under your proposal, the red line now includes the entire ground floor, the entire first floor.
Yes.
So all on sales would be within the red line. So obviously dining outside on the terrace would be included as an on sale rather than an off sale. And all off sales would just purely relate to the takeaways and deliveries. I just wanted to clarify, is that the case?
That is the case. I mean, I should say, I don't think we need to get into it today, but we aren't at all sure that the patio at the front is not included in the license present. And the reason I say that is that it's clearly been used for many, many years for licensable activities in circumstances where we don't have an off license authorization. Never been any suggestion that that's a breach of licensing or the rules or so on and so forth. So I have to say we don't necessarily agree that isn't already within the area, but certainly this application seeks to regularise that and bring it within it. So off sales would then be limited, as you say, to takeaway and delivery.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to check. If you could just let me know about the off sales at 11 p.m. after break.
Of course I will. It seems that that's a sensible move, but I will confirm that after the break if I may.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thanks. It's now 11:49. Well, just turned to 11:50. I suggest we reassemble at 12 noon.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much.
What do you want? Do you want to come out?
Hello.
Hello.
We should restart, shouldn't we?
I think you need to check that everybody's back.
Yeah, it's 12:04. Let's try that. Is Anne and Miss Wright, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Councillor. I'm back.
Now, actually 12:04. Should have said 15 minutes. I can't remember. I couldn't remember. That's more convenient. Could we check that everybody's present, please?
I can confirm that no one has left the room, but if we could just check the key parties are here. Mr. Cannon, are you with us?
I am, yes. Hello.
Great. Mr. Teslev?
Hiya, I'm back. Live and kicking.
Thank you. Mr. Foster?
Yep, I'm here.
Great. Ms. Frail, are you back?
Yes, I am.
Super. And then I think the officers are here with us. Lindsay, are you here, legal officer?
Yes, I am.
Super. And Paul from licensing?
I'm here, thank you, Anne.
Super. Okay. Yes, Chairman, I think we're ready to crack on again.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we've got a hand from Mr. Cannon. He would like to ask a question or something.
Just to make good on my promise to come back on that question from your learned legal advisor before the break. So is this the appropriate time to do that?
Yes, Mr. Z, is that okay? There's Missouri, sorry.
Yes, that'd be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. The short answer is yes, that you're quite right, that's fine. The slightly longer answer is that, of course, because we're proposing a condition that sales of alcohol only be for takeaway be with meals. Actually, I think it's academic because we couldn't sell alcohol alone after 2300 anyway. But I think the easiest way to deal with that is to say, yes, off sales stop at 2300 in line with late night refreshment.
Thank you.
Okay. Just made a note of that. Okay. I suppose if there are any residual questions, I mean, I've got a residual question to ask the applicant. I saw somewhere a family room, storeroom, oblique. What does that mean?
Okay, cool. Hi. So the idea there is that we would create or have an area where, if the need arises to have, like a children's playroom, if the people want to use it for, I don't want to say the word depositing kids while they're having a meal, but changing kids, that kind of thing. That's the idea behind it. It's again more about making it more family friendly more than anything else. It's that's the concept behind it.
Okay, right. Thanks very much.
And also, what wasn't mentioned earlier is I've actually added from our conversation with the residents a couple of nights ago. This is mostly for Mr. Foster. I've invested in a virtual queuing system that's costing about £500 a month, a little bit more than that. And I've taken that subscription up for a year to rest assured that, again, we can send people out, send them an SMS, and when it's ready, people come back to the table. Come back to the restaurant.
Thanks. Oh, that's what you meant by your SMS system.
Yes, the virtual queuing system.
Actual telephone-based text messaging system.
Yeah, so basically, if the restaurant is full or when they arrive, when don't have a reservation, if it's busy, we'll take their details and their phone number. We'll then the system will tell us how long it will be on average based on it using AI, and then we'll allow the people we'll ask people to go down to Portobello Road or wherever they want to go have a coffee in Notting Hill Gate, and when the table's ready, you'll get an automated SMS a few minutes before the table's ready as it turns around, and that stops people standing outside queuing as well.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, are there any other questions? Any fellow councillors?
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Williams?
Yes. One point really for the applicant. I mean, obviously, this first floor rear terrace is very obviously something Miss Frail is very unhappy about. And I wondered, as you said, you might want to use it in the future, and it might be better to withdraw the use of that from this. I mean, I just offer this as a suggestion. If you felt you wanted to use it, make a further an application for variation at a future date.
Thank you for that, sir. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, can I just respond to that from a legal point of view? There's a difficulty with, for us, in removing an area from what we consider to be the licensed area. In terms of our tenancy, our landlord requires us not to make substantial changes to the license. So I don't think we could do that. But what we could do, and you heard me effectively offer to Ms. Freile before the break, was agree to a condition limiting the times at which that could be used once it's possible. So if there were there are concerns about the noise generation potential of use of that space. And we would certainly be happy with the condition limiting the use of that to after 10 p.m, as I said to Ms. Freile, but I don't think we could go so far as to sort of remove that from the licensed area.
To answer your question, sir, it's and this is just me being, I'm not a specialist, but my understanding, and from when we did all the research and all our lawyers did both the licensing and planning up due diligence on the property, all of this was included within the license. So my understanding is I haven't applied for a license there, nor am I applying for a license for this area. My understanding it has it, while it hasn't been used for a number of years. The whole thing is actually the whole drawing is pretty messy, as you know. And all I was trying to do is actually clean that up and make it sort of clear for everybody and just do the right thing by it. That's all I've been trying to do. So, like I said, I haven't definitively, I had some ideas previously about what to do there for sort of, especially now with COVID, creating a further outdoor area where people could sit and have a meal. But I've listened to what Ms. Freile has said a lot. And, based on that conversation we had a couple of weeks ago, no definitive plans have been put together now for dealing with that area in terms of doing anything with it, because I obviously don't want to be upsetting anybody either. That's just not really who I am as a person. And it's not a big area. It's 12 people or something seated. But I totally understand the point. I hope did I answer that question? So I don't believe that's part of the application. I haven't made an application for that, if that makes sense. At least I'm not aware that I've made an application.
Thanks, Mr. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tesler. I presume you've seen the pictures that Freile, who actually... Yes. You were speaking, but you've seen the pictures. I mean, it is almost an extension of her. It's
right there. Yeah, it's right there. It's right there.
So,
and that's why I couldn't do anything with it the way it is now. I mean, the way it was when we took it over with, not just that, even the fences that are there are totally rotten and falling apart. It's dangerous anyway. So, and there was a leak. So from my point of view, it's like, no matter what happens in that area, we need to do something to mitigate and create privacy, which is what I understood from them, because it's not fair for them to be looking at people either. They want privacy. I understand it. Yeah, and they are there now. What we'd have to do is create some sort of a partition wall or something before we did anything, and some sort of whether umbrellas or pergola or something. But there is no question, or there's no thing from me that we're going to have an open place there with people sitting there openly with no barriers, no walls, nothing. That's not right. And as she rightly points out, she also has children there and they play in that area next door, and it's their multiple roof terraces. So please understand that I don't have any intention of just shoving chairs and tables there and good luck, see you later. That's never been my intention, nor is it my intention.
Thank you. Well, I've got 2 points. One is to, before Ms. Freile gets to speak, I'd just like to make that point that you've borne Councillor Williams' suggestion in mind. That's the one thing. And the second thing is there seems to be some disagreement as to about whether this outside area is part of the existing license, as an existing license or not. Mr. Cannon said it does, but I'm not sure.
So the law firms that on that note, all I can say is we had two law firms. And the licensing firm, all of them looked at it, all of them came back with the same thing. I'm not a specialist. I just went by what they said and what the plans and based on what the existing design and building was. Like I said, I'm not here to upset anybody. So let's see how we can resolve this and find something that Ms. Fraley is happy with and you guys are confident with, that we're good.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Fraley?
Yes, I just wanted to say that well, to the extent that that area is licensed, which is something for the council to clarify, that you could perfectly well propose a condition of just not using that space. It's not. It shouldn't be a complex matter, as Mr. Cannon is suggesting. Even if it's inside the premises, you can always offer a condition to not use that space.
Thank you very much. Anybody, Mr. Cannon would like to come back.
Well, so only if it's helpful, just to make clear, I think Ms. Fraley didn't quite understand what I was saying, which was that I don't think we could agree to remove that area from the licensable area in keeping with our landlord and tenant relationship with our landlord. That's the point I was making. I wasn't for a minute saying that you couldn't impose whatever condition you like. It was about whether we could agree to it. That was my point. But I don't know whether it's helpful to you, but you're right to note that our view, my view, as it happens, as a licensing barrister, is that the licensing area does include that area. I know that Mr. Phelan said otherwise at the start, but I don't understand that view. I don't agree with it, but I don't think we need to resolve that today. I don't think we can resolve that today. This isn't the place to do so. But it seems to me that the licensed plans, as Mr. Teslev has said a few times, are so unhelpful and unreliable and old, and show a picture that is so unrelated to the present day that it's very difficult to know exactly what they do authorise. And that's why Mr. Teslev has put in the plans and an attempt to make the plans reflect what actually happens on the ground. So I hope we don't need to get into that no doubt interesting legal argument about what exactly the licence area does cover, but you're right to note that it's our position that it covers both that area and also the patio at the front. But there we are.
And I can't change anything, but the terms of my lease, I'm not allowed to do anything that materially changes that license of the property. And as per the landlord, that exists. But we'll find a way to work this together. So I'm super confident on that. But I would want to agree what that is, if so.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Of course, we don't have the details, the wording of the lease that refers to these aspects. So we can't.
I have to give it back exactly. I have to give it back exactly as I took it.
Said it several times, and you've made the point, but we don't have the wordings, and we're not here to discuss the wording of your lease, obviously.
Sure, for sure.
These elements, but thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Fraley, your hand is up again, or still? Was that a legacy hand, to quote Mr.?
It was a legacy hand. Sorry.
I like that word. I think I'll adopt it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Missouri, do you have anything to add? And the licensing office, let's say Missouri. Oh, now Mr. Teslev would like to say something.
Sorry, one last thing.
We really have to really come to an end here.
One last thing. To Ms. Fraley, what would make you, just maybe it's not for me to ask or normal for what would make it comfortable or happy for you to move forward with this? Just so I don't know if I've asked that question, but how do we it's your concern is that first of all, terrace. I mean, the courtyard is not in use, so that's not a conversation even, and we're not planning to use it. What would make you comfortable, if anything? Am I right to even ask? Am I right to ask that question? I don't know.
Yeah, Teslev, you may ask that question, but if I preempt,
yeah,
I have to preempt it. She did say doesn't want you. Ms. Fraley did say that twice that she does not. She prefers not to see that used at all.
So maybe we just don't use it until we come to an arrangement or something.
And Councillor Williams had proposed, don't use it, we exclude it from this, but if you come to make plans to change your mind or to have new plans, which would include obviously how you deal with the noise and so on, you could come and ask for a variation. So you've had your proposals from Mr. Councillor Williams, so which strikes me as an excellent suggestion, which of course you may not get the variation, but at least it's a possibility. But let Ms. Fraley add to that.
No, that's essentially it. I've already made my point. I think that there is no. I mean, I try to be constructive, but I cannot think of a set of conditions that would make that work for us. It's just too close to our house. It's just just an internal space that's meant to be private. I'm sorry, but I cannot think of a way of solving that.
So, okay, so I mean, to me, I'm not looking to develop that now, so that's not really part of this. So I'm not, we'll just hold off on that piece. I mean, I don't have that in place at the moment, so I'm not worried about that. You'll be satisfied with that, I suspect.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's great to hear that you're not planning to use it. It would just be great to have it in writing as a condition that it cannot be done, or at least to make it clear whether that is licensed or not and what is the intended use. That's all.
Are there any conditions or anything being put on here, or would that be is that normal? Is that how this works? Because I think we're just asking for the off-license delivery of alcohol piece. I don't know. This is what I'm picking up from what I'm understanding of the conversation. Mr. Chairman, sorry.
We will. Yes, no, I got that. We will explore that. But as I said, Councillor Williams put forward the idea that we exclude it specifically by condition. But you can always come back for a variation. I mean, that would be a completely new approach, if you like. But it's always open for you to do that.
Okay, so you mean like basically put in a new application if we wanted to develop it further later, you mean?
Yes, or, you have some scheme to mitigate the noise.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense. I can see logic in that.
Mr.
I mean, I wanted to be happy.
Okay. So you'd accept Mr. Councillor Williams's proposal? Suggestion?
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's within the licensable area, but to say that the condition is that you guys have to be happy with what we propose to work the area, that's what I've understood.
Well,
so we put in
we can that's a very slight variation to that, but we could also explore that with the legal team.
Yeah, I mean, I want you guys to be happy that we're doing the right thing. So yeah, I mean, it's within the license, but before we can actually do anything there, you guys need to approve what we're doing there. I have no problem with that.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Fraley, any other point to add?
No, that's it. I mean, I think it's two different points. The first point to clarify if the area is licensed. If it's not licensed, then there's no discussion. If it is licensed, then we can discuss the uses and any conditions. But I guess the first point is to clarify if the area is usable at all.
Okay, right. Now Mr. Cannon would like to come back.
Well, again, so I hope this is helpful. I think Ms. Fraley is to some extent right, although I don't think what we need to do is determine whether that area is presently licensed. There is no doubt that our proposal, which includes the plans that you've seen in our application, would make that area part of the licensed area. But we can't change that because of the particular landlord and tenant relationship. But I think the proper conversation is if that either becomes or remains a licensable area, i.e. without deciding that question one way or another, post the grant of this variation, if you grant it, you are obviously entitled to put a condition on about the use of that particular part of the licensable area. And it sounds to me from what Mr. Teslev has been saying, and in that very helpful conversation, is that he would be happy for a condition for the time being preventing customer use of that area. And if at some point in the future he can find a solution which means that he could use that without causing a disturbance, he could make an application to vary that condition. That I think, forgive me for being a lawyer about it, but I think that's the legal route to what Councillor Williams was essentially suggesting. And it sounds to me as if that's something that Mr. Teslev can agree with. So I hope that's a helpful interjection. I know Ms. Lemazurier will come in if that doesn't make sense or isn't the right analysis, but I think from a legal point of view, that's how this conversation should run if there is a question about it, which there obviously is.
Okay, thank you. Well, Mr. Teslev, is that a legacy hand?
Yes. Oh, is that my hand? I'm so sorry.
Okay, right.
Legacy.
Legacy hand. Okay. Right. I think we really have to now move on, and we come to our legal officer if she'd like to ask anything or say anything, in particular with some of the most recent comments and potential solutions.
Well, I'm ready to go on to the draft conditions session if you are, and I think any issues will crop up there.
Okay, could I then ask Mr. Phelan if he would like to say anything at this point?
No, I have nothing. Apologies, Chair.
Any comments from either of you about the licensed area? Because that seems to be.
No, I mean, all I can do is reiterate my position, and that's that these areas are not licensed. And as Mr. Cannon said, it's probably not the day to sort that one out. But again, my position remains.
It's true, except in the sense. Well, I guess we can. It's a question of dealing with the use of the terrace, which is the rear terrace, which is the issue. Because if it's not licensed, then I'm not sure that one can apply a condition of, but anyway, can we deal with this through the conditions then?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, so we've got the conditions on the screen and they've already been circulated. So obviously 1 to 6 are the existing mandatory conditions on the licence. As I go through them, perhaps if Mr. Cannon could say if he agrees or disagrees with any changes I've made in red, that will be helpful. So number 7, there wasn't any change proposed, nor for number 8. Existing condition 9, I know you did 2 parts, but I've done 1 part here and 1 part in condition 14. Are you happy with my suggested amendment in red for condition 9?
With the greatest respect, no. The change that we proposed was specifically to deal with alcohol off sales and bringing that into line with the present condition for on sales. I have to say we don't see any difficulty at all with the current wording for on sales, which says the sale and supply of alcohol shall be ancillary to customers consuming substantial table meals within the premises. That absolutely fits with our intention, which is as a food-led venue. What we were suggesting was a change to mean that now that, well, by our variation, we're asking for off sales, but that those off sales should also be ancillary to the sale of food.
Right, so that's 14 then, that would be covering that in, then the off sales element, condition 14.
Yes, it would. Well, hang on, if you just move down to 14, then I can tell you if that's right or not. That's a new, that's the new one. That's fine. That is covering that same point, but our position is that what we suggested is the right wording. That's the current wording of the license. Can I just make a point now that just to save me making it each time you ask me about the conditions, and hopefully save some time. Again, I don't want to be too loyally about things, but this is a variation application. And the question for the committee, as everyone knows, is whether to grant the variation sought, and if so, subject to conditions which would mean that those variations wouldn't offend the licensing objectives. Now, some of these conditions don't seem to me to be directed at the variation at all. They seem to be of general application, for example, the CCTV condition. Now, that said, we've no difficulty with those conditions at all. They're already part of our SOPs and they're perfectly sensible. But I think there does need to be some focus on this is a variation application and whether these conditions are appropriate for a grant of the variation, rather than just some general question of are these sensible conditions to apply to a license, any license. So, and the reason I say that now in respect of condition 9 is my view is that condition 9, as presently drafted, has fully protected the licensing objectives concerned, kept the place as a restaurant, and will in the future, with the addition that we're suggesting for off sales. So my position on condition 9, and it will be a position that you hear a few times, is that there is no basis to change condition 9 apart from in the way that we suggest for the purposes of this variation. We are only asking, remember, to offer breakfast in the morning, to offer off sales of alcohol, and to regularise the plans. So that's my general position on it.
Right, so can I just clarify?
Ms. Muzura, may I just add something here? But I think the point is that you say the condition 9 as it stands satisfy the on sales, the selling in the restaurant situation.
Yes.
Keeping the off sales statement, if you like, condition separate has the great merit also that if off sales change, remember we are dealing with a permanent license here, not something relating to this operator. This is a permanent license, therefore having it as a separate item, I can't see the difficulty. If you maybe you could Yes, so you have a separate off sales condition. The only other way, I mean, I'm subject to what our legal advisor says, of course, is that sentence is transferred to condition 9. So I don't really see why you are resisting. Sorry, why you are resisting on the basis of there's only variation. Therefore, I'm not going to have a new condition. I don't understand that.
So that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. I have no difficulty at all with on and off sales being dealt with either in one condition, a revised condition 9, or in 2 conditions. I don't mind, doesn't matter. As you say, it could be 9 and 9A, could be 9 and 4, doesn't matter at all. What I'm saying is that the present condition 9 dealing with on sales, which is in black on the screen, existing condition 9, is for on sales perfectly adequate. And I don't think there needs to be the amendment suggested in red. And I don't agree to that. As for off sales, I'm perfectly happy for that wording to be applied to off sales, whether it be by a separate condition or part of this condition. Don't mind. So that's the point.
Okay.
May I just ask
Mr. Mazurier?
Sorry, thank you, Chair. On page 2 of the main pack, your suggested word on sales, which I think would tweak the wording in black, is any sale of alcohol. Oh, sorry, that's the off sales one. You didn't provide word for on sales, did you? Sorry. Okay, fine.
That's the point. We think there needs to be no change to condition 9 for on sales.
Right. Okay. So you're not happy with my proposed slightly amended wording. You'd rather keep the wording as shown in black.
For on sales, correct.
Okay. And just to as regards your point about this just being a variation, obviously we've received 32 representations, so obviously the local authority's discretion has been engaged. And any conditions we do or they do choose to impose must be appropriate and proportionate. So obviously
that's right.
We're going to come to this from different angles, but
of course that's right. But the representations are about the variation, and the hearing is about the variation. So you're absolutely right that the discretion is engaged. Of course it is. That's why we're all here. But in terms of conditions, they do need to address the variations sought, because that's what this hearing's about.
Correct. Right, let's move on. So there weren't any changes. Sorry,
doesn't condition 14 address exactly the variation?
Yeah.
Right, sorry. Can we move on to condition?
No difficulty with condition 14.
Sorry, can we go to 12 though? Because I slightly tweaked 12. Were you happy with the slightly added in words about leaving the patrons being off the premises?
Well, it's really the same point. I have to say, I don't see what the difficulty with existing condition 12 is. We're required to close 30 minutes after terminal hour for alcohol, which is absolutely in line with what the licence says about closing and opening time. We've got an authorisation to sell alcohol until 11:30. The premises has got to be closed at 2400. I think that condition is absolutely fine. I don't really understand what the extra verbiage achieves. And our position is, unless it really needs changing, don't change it. I also don't really see what this has to do with the particular variations sought. So same point. But the wording in black is fine. It does the job.
Okay. Understood. Right. So moving on to the additional conditions. Condition 13. What is your view on that?
Sorry, I missed. For some reason, you just cut out. Did you say 13?
13, please. What is your view on that, please?
13 is fine. We've no difficulty with that.
Agreed. And you were happy with 14?
Yeah. Either as part of condition 9 or as a separate condition, I don't mind. Yeah.
Okay. 15.
That's fine. That's part of our SOPs anyway.
Okay.
Could I just stop as a point? Miss Fraley, I think, wants to comment on this. Could you do that?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to ask what's in the square brackets or in the bar area. How does that work? Is that supposed to be added to the condition? I didn't understand.
Well, I don't understand that either, because we don't have a bar area, but we have a waiting. We have a service bar, and there may be people waiting there, but. Those words in square brackets, I assume, were an optional extra.
Correct.
Yeah, which is, they're fine either way. I don't have a view.
Thank you.
Just to clarify that there's no bar area, right? So there's just a bar where
it's a service.
Will wait to be seated, right?
So there's no bar area whatsoever.
It's a service bar. So I mean, I don't know whether bar area has a particular meaning. It's not one that I understand, but there's a service bar where waiters and waitresses will make drinks and so on. But there isn't a bar that people can stand and engage in what's called vertical drinking. This is a sit-down restaurant.
Understood. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
What about the waiting area? You've got a waiting area, haven't you?
There's an area which people can wait in, yeah, and they can sit and eat at the bar. But again, there's a there is. Okay. It depends what you.
Truly vertical drinking. That's fine. That's fine.
There's no vertical drinking. That's the point of this condition. I think it's waiter and waitress services by customers seated at tables or seated in the bar area. That's what those words mean, and I think that's what they're intended to mean. Am I right, Ms. Le Mesurier?
Yeah, that is correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Are we ready to move on to 16?
Yeah.
So I was thinking of putting conditions 16 and 18 together because they fit together. Do you have problems with 16 or 18?
No, they're already part of our SOPs, and I'm not sure they relate to the variation, but they're very sensible conditions, and we'll be doing them anyway, so no need to spend time on them.
And then condition 17, are you happy with that? And we might just try and merge 17 with 19 because they seem to duplicate each other a little bit.
They do.
So I might just merge them into one. So are you happy with the concept of both of them?
They're all part of our SOPs and would be for any responsible operator, so no difficulty.
Thank you. So moving on to condition 20, the challenge 25. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, again, that's part of our procedure anyway, so no difficulty there at all.
Okay. Condition 21.
Sorry, Mr. Missouri, it just occurred to me now, rather than discuss it later, is in that condition, just a grammar thing.
Yep.
In the bit over the page where it says photographic identity cards, all recognised national photographic identity cards in 20. The S should be dropped from after the word card.
Okay, noted.
Sorry.
I think without wishing to raise the spectre of Brexit, I'm not sure it's reasonable or proper any longer to only recognise photographic ID from EU member state countries. And I don't want to make a fuss about this. I'm perfectly happy with the wording, but I can see why that was part of the protocols when we were a member of the EU. But I dare say that probably doesn't have a long future, that form of words. But I don't propose a different. I mean, I think recognised national photographic identity cards is probably sufficient. But Ms. Le Mesurier may have a view. It's not a big issue.
No, I would imagine that condition would be amended in time. I can certainly liaise with licensing, but it's just a model condition at the moment. So
we're happy either way, whatever the right condition is for that.
Thank you.
If I'm not mistaken, European Union citizens will be allowed to use their ID cards for a little while, not for much longer, but for a little while longer. So it's perfectly reasonable. If I understood correctly.
Thank you. Right, 21 about the DPS dedicated telephone number. Are you okay with that?
Yes, again, in principle, it's very sensible. The only thing I'm slightly concerned about is the words in brackets displayed so that it's visible from the public highway. I don't want this to be a nuisance in itself, signage and so on, but certainly we can display it somewhere. Visible from the public highway would require it to be quite big, I think, given the patio area that sits between the public highway and the, if you like, the bricks and mortar premises. So I'm not totally sure about those words, but in principle, no difficulty at all with making the DPS's number or duty manager's number available on request or however you want to put it.
Thank you. We're moving to condition 22.
Tesla. Okay. Well, he's put his hand down again. Okay. Do you want to amend the word? What do you want to do about the wording in square brackets in this 21? Or do you want to? Shall we think about it later?
Who are you talking to, Mr. Cannon?
Mr. Madrid, yeah.
Well, I think it's something we can discuss later on.
Okay, fine.
So my position is that whatever you think is the best thing, but the only cautionary note is that in order to be visible from the public highway, it would have to be quite big, and that has implications of its own. But I leave that entirely to your good sense.
Thank you. Right, moving on to condition 22. I noticed that F refers to CCTV, and I haven't put in a CCTV condition. I wasn't too sure if you have got CCTV or not, but it's not been an issue that's been raised.
No,
I mean, if you have got CCTV, we can leave F in. If you haven't, we can remove it.
we do, and of course we have a CCTV system, and we'll keep one, and perfectly happy for that to be a condition of the licence. 22 to be a condition.
Thank you. Right, this is the one that residents would like, 23, about holding meetings with residents. Can I just have your view on that, please, and the bits in square brackets?
Yeah, it's in principle it's fine. Good idea, hopefully helpful. You've heard already that there's been some really positive discussions already between Mr. Tesleff and at least some of the residents, although I note that Ms. Aubrey didn't make it to the meeting on Tuesday, in fact didn't seem to know about it, but I think we had about 13 or 14 neighbours there on Wednesday. Twice a calendar year, I don't have a strong view. Whatever you think is reasonable. It may well be that twice a year is the sensible amount of time. And then where the second lot of square brackets are, it should say residents of Farmer Street, I think, who are our direct neighbours. And then we have no other comment on that. It seems a sensible proposition.
Let me just have a quick look. Residents of Farmer Street, yes. Hillgate Street, number 11 Hillgate Street. I don't know what's there, but anyway, if there's nothing happening at the back, then it doesn't really matter.
No, exactly. And so you'll see that this condition, as it's drafted, includes notifying local residents associations. The key one is the Hillgate Village Residents Association, so they will be notified anyway, but I think then there's an additional requirement to notify Farmer Street residents.
Yes, okay. Yes, I think that makes sense. Well, yeah. Mr. Missouri, do you think you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that. That's perfectly fine.
Farmer Street's fine. Yeah, I mean, they're the obvious ones because the front terrace and the people outside. Okay.
What, condition 24?
24 is no difficult. We have no difficulty with that.
Brilliant, thank you. 25, I think we need to kind of suss out smoking areas. I think you mentioned Uxbridge Street.
Well, yes, there isn't a designated area for smoking, as Mr. Tesleff said. The first point is that patrons who sit on the patio and take meals on the patio are entitled to smoke there. That's open, more than 50% open. They're perfectly entitled to do that. But that isn't an area where people can come from inside and smoke and then go back inside, because obviously that's not compatible with people dining out there. I think Mr. Tesleff said that he thought the best place for people to smoke would be around the corner on Uxbridge Street, where there are no residents in the immediate area. But whether we can, if you like, take control of part of the public highway and make it a designated smoking area, I don't think is clear. We don't own the pavement on Uxbridge Street, as you'd understand. There isn't the only part of our premises that's within the demise that could be used for a smoking area is the rear courtyard, but we don't want to do that for perfectly obvious reasons, and aren't going to do that for perfectly obvious reasons. And in fact, it's our SOP not to. So I think the practical answer is that if people from inside want to go out to smoke, then they must just do so on Uxbridge Street.
Can I just clarify, the ground floor courtyard, is that supposed to be accessible to the public?
No, it's not.
That's what I thought you said, yeah.
No.
Okay.
And it's not intended that anyone go out there, and we're not prepared to let people go out there. It's, I mean, at best, it's used for storage, no more. Okay,
fine. Okay, and you're not obviously proposing to use the first floor terrace, as you said. That's kind of not as undecided at present. So okay.
Exactly.
Okay, so do you have any view? I mean, obviously, it's difficult to say how many people if it's going to be in an area on Uxbridge Street, which is, I suppose it's highway land, so it's not the premises, but I suppose there is an element of control over your customers going outside.
Yeah, we will definitely, in fact, our SOP already, in terms of staff smoking, already requires staff to go to Notting Hill Gate to smoke if they want to take breaks. We've seen that already. In terms of patrons, we have a certain amount of control in that we can tell them where they can't smoke, but if they want to go to Uxbridge Street and smoke, we can't stop them. That's public highway, they're entitled to do that. But I think where we would direct them to, there will be some kind of soft control, and the sensible place is Uxbridge Street. I think if we require them to go to Notting Hill Gate, that would be difficult. Some people wouldn't want to go to and would say, why can't I just go on Uxbridge Street? But perfectly happy to have part of our SOPs asking customers to go to Uxbridge Street or not to remain on Farmer Street or whatever. But these are sort of practical things to iron out. I'm not sure they need to be in a condition, frankly. But
okay, thank you. Don't know if the councillors have any views on that.
Councillor Williams? Pat Healy?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor
Okay.
Williams? No. Well, yeah. What do you think, Mr. Muzzari?
Well, I think Mr. Cannon's correct. There isn't any control over people smoking on Uxbridge Street, and it isn't in the I don't believe it's a residential part of the street. It's round the corner. It's not Farmer Street. So if they're not smoking on the roof terrace, which obviously was a concern, and they're going to, people can smoke on the patio. That's correct.
Yeah.
But obviously, possibly that could be limited. That's one of the later conditions we can discuss.
Right.
I don't think we can control where they smoke on Uxbridge Street or how many people go out there. It's just within the premises ultimately, or immediate premises.
So, I mean, okay. So, are you saying we shouldn't even mention Uxbridge Street in condition 25? We shouldn't even.
Well, I think we can craft a condition to say direct to Uxbridge Street.
Yes. Yeah. Because the applicant is willing to put up some sort of receptacle.
Yeah.
You can attach to the wall of the building.
Yeah, I think they used to do that for the Addison Lee ones, didn't they? From recollection.
Yeah, I mean, quite a few premises. I don't know about bars and that. I can't remember, but quite a few premises have got these ashtrays, these little, I don't know, ash repositories on the sides of buildings.
Yeah, that's correct.
If we can do that, then of course we'll do that, and that ought to by itself encourage people to go to Uxbridge Street. Just to point on the patio, in case I wasn't clear, people who are sitting at tables on the patio taking meals will be entitled to smoke there. Obviously, they're outside, but there will.
My line's breaking. It's breaking slowly because my line has gone slightly dodgy.
Okay, shall I start again, sir?
Yeah.
It was just a point about the patio, in case I wasn't clear. Customers seated at tables taking meals on the patio will be entitled to smoke cigarettes if they wish to, but we won't let customers from inside the restaurant come out to the patio and stand and smoke, because that's obviously incompatible with people enjoying meals out there. So that isn't a designated smoking area for people inside, albeit that there's an entitlement smoke for people who are sitting there. Do you follow?
Right. The designated smoking area is then Uxbridge Street. The designated area will be Uxbridge Street.
Insofar as we can designate an area of highway, and I don't think we can formally, but yeah, that's where we tell customers to go. And if we can fix ashtrays to the wall,
we'll craft a condition to. Okay.
Very good.
At this point, could I ask about condition that you have because you've got it in your, I think I mentioned it right at the beginning, near the beginning. You've got it in your SOP. We can stick a condition in here that you have a plan. You designate smoking area and break area outside the restaurant for the staff.
It's in our SOP.
What it is, but you decide that. Pardon?
It's in our SOP what the staff do. Yeah.
Can we stick a condition in that recognising that, if you like, craft a condition which says 25A or new 26 or something.
If you want to do that, I don't see any particular difficulty. I don't think you need to, because it's in our SOPs and we have control over our own staff. But yes, if you are worried that won't be enough, then you could copy and paste the particular bits from the SOPs into condition 25.
Okay, or maybe have it as a separate line item.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Muzzari. I think that is worth considering.
Thank you.
Because, we have to admit, we are thinking of any operator, not just this responsible one. Things can change. Okay, so we can. Okay, so 26.
So this is the delivery service. Are you happy with this condition?
Yes.
Thank you. Right, condition 27. This is just about keeping the pavement clean out the front and presumably the side as well. And obviously we'll probably need to put in how many times a day and how many times and how often. Are you happy with that?
Well, I don't think you need to put how many times and how often, but I think the condition as it's presently worded is fine. We'll sweep it and wash it and keep it clean, of course. But I think putting in numbers is overkill and a bit much for a condition. But yes, of course, we're happy to take that responsibility.
Okay, so you'd be happy for that to be the pavement fronting Farmer Street and the bits down Uxbridge Street, the flank wall of your property?
Yeah, that's as 27 reads. As I read it, that would be the proper interpretation. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay.
But could I? Sorry, I want before we move to 28. Sorry, do you want to say something about 27, Mr. Mazaria?
No. You're far away.
But 27, I think we should put in some numbers because this is very vague. This could mean anything. And again, it's a general condition. I'm sure you'd have no problems with anything reasonable put in there, but it is a condition that will live forever, so to speak. And the experience is that it is worth putting in at least a minimum. What you do with it is up to you. But if we said something like, twice in the day with at least 6 hours between checks or something like that, then that would be something which would at least quantify this a little bit. Because right now it's very vague, and somebody responsible will say, well, of course I'm going to do it. I don't even need a condition to sweep the street in front of my property because it looks bad and it puts people off. But not everybody's like that. So that's my suggestion, is to put actually a number in with a minimum separation. And it could be twice a day during open hours, or 3 times with a minimum of 3-4 hours between. What do you think of that, Mr. Cannon? Or indeed, Mr. Teslev?
Well, sir, I with the greatest respect, I think this is micromanagement by condition, which is not what conditions are for. I accept that you could change the wording slightly. I think the problem with making it twice a day is that you then impose a requirement on pain of criminal sanctions to sweep the street when it might not need sweeping, and that feels to me to be going beyond what's appropriate. Let me be absolutely clear. We've no difficulty in accepting the responsibility of cleaning up stuff that comes from our premises. I don't see how this necessarily relates to the variations, first. And secondly, I think we need to be careful not to create effectively potential criminal offences because of over detailed requirements. But if the condition read shall be swept at least daily and at the end of service or something like that, I have no difficulty with that.
Okay, thanks very much. In fact, I mean, you do raise a good point there about imposing a need to sweep, even if there is no need.
Exactly.
That is a good point. So one could have, once a day is fine, but I was just thinking one could say check for the need. But I guess, once interesting, we'll ponder your suggestion. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Because it may not need it. I mean, you might have such wonderful customers. They pick up the napkins, they drop off the tables, and
I dare say we won't need it because this is the pavement. Our customers don't sit on the pavement, stand on the pavement. They're seated at tables. I don't think we will need to sweep every day, but if we need to, we'll do it. Obviously, it suits our style of operation. That it's nice. So
let's consider your suggestion. Thank you very much.
Okay, so 28, 29, 30 rubbish, refuse and deliveries. Not between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. What's your views on that, please?
No difficulty. In fact, RBKC control the collection of refuse and so on anyway. You've heard from Mr. Teslev where we have to leave it. It's on Notting Hill Gate. We've no difficulty with those conditions.
Okay, brilliant. 31.
Sorry. One thing on that. Sorry. It's sorry. On the refuse piece, what happens if RBKC waste management decide to change those hours that they do the collection and pickup on? Just asking the question.
I think the answer is, if I may, Mr. Teslev, is that we then immediately write to the licensing authority and say, for reasons outside our control, we can't comply with that license. Can there be a minor variation to reflect it? And I think that would be the way to deal with that.
You're talking about what, putting a poster up like we've done now for a variation, a hearing, and then in the meantime the rubbish will be in a way that neighbours and everybody be super upset, as will we.
No, I don't think we'd have to do any of that. But perhaps we can discuss this outside of the meeting. I'm comfortable that condition doesn't cause you any major concerns.
Yeah,
it's a fairly standard condition. I don't think that.
No, I'm good with it. I'm totally good with it. Don't misunderstand it.
I understand your worry. Your worry. It's an interesting one. I'm trying to tell you that it's pretty standard, which means there's no real risk of the council starting to collect rubbish at 6:30 in the morning.
Okay, cool. Yeah, as long as they don't change their hours on us.
Depends on your contractor, of course.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty standard condition, and people don't have a problem complying with it.
Yeah, cool. Good.
Right. Okay. So moving on to 31. I mean, most of the following conditions were kind of to respond to the residents' concerns. 31, signage. Do you have an issue with that condition being prominently displayed?
No. I think outside the premises means beyond the patio area.
Yes.
That's the only concern. But I think we're agreed that at least post this variation, if it's granted, the patio would be inside and it would be beyond that, that there'd be no drinks or glass containers, in which case that's fine.
Okay. 32. So I suggest that the words "no persons, including staff, shall be permitted to smoke on the first floor roof terrace or in the ground floor rear courtyard at all."
I don't think there's any intention that either of those areas will be used for smoking.
Brilliant. Okay.
So do we delete the square brackets?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. And then the same for 33. Again, deleting the square brackets. No.
What happens if the area is developed and all of a sudden it's a non-smoking area? Sorry, just asking the question.
That's okay. Let me just come in on this. There's at the moment we've had a discussion about the first floor terrace, and I think the agreement is that for the time being there'll be a condition that isn't used. There's no intention to use the ground floor courtyard for smoking, so those things are fine. There might in the future be an intention to use the first floor roof terrace for licensable activities, but as we've discussed, if we do, we would have to make an application for a variation to permit that. So my view, and obviously I'm instructed by Mr. Teslev, so he will let me know if this is not his view. For the time being, those conditions are fine, and if we want to change the operation of the first floor terrace, then we'll make the appropriate application.
Chairman.
Yes, Councillor Williams.
Yeah, no, I think this is quite an important point, and we just need a bit of clarity. As I understand it, Mr. Cannon is offering that effectively the first floor rear terrace will be unused. Well, I'm not saying completely valued for storage or something, but not used for restaurant use or for smoking until a variation is submitted and approved. So I think we will need to have probably questioning only one condition, which effectively says that it is not used for serving customers.
Yes.
So are you saying not to use at all, or not to use for?
Well, I mean, he can't mean. Well, I mean, they might want to use it for storage or possibly as an office. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know the premises except the outside. I think it's not clear to me exactly the form of words used, just because I understand that they need it to be included in the licensed area.
Well, there's still a debate about whether it is or isn't, but I think 33 and 34 and 33 and 34 relate to the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, there's any use, but maybe it should be for customer use, for restaurant use.
Yeah, can I just jump in on that? It does need to be customer use because we do use both of those areas for ad hoc storage and will use ad hoc storage. So that's the first one.
Yeah, probably customer use or not restaurant use. I mean, storage is restaurant use.
Yeah, I think restaurant use, but I think customer use works fine. The next point is
sorry, just Joe. I also thought that we agreed earlier that we need to seek permission in how we handle the privacy issues for the neighbor before we develop this area, as opposed to a new license application or whatever it is.
It's a variation, Mr. Teslev, we're talking about. You don't have to ask for a whole new license. I mean, this is sort of, it's actually quite a comprehensive, it's a variation, and it's made to look like it's a little one, but actually there's more to it. As you can see, we're still sitting at 1 o'clock. So, but the point is, I think the idea is to have no use of this area, no customer use of any sort. And should you wish to develop the area, then you'd put in for a variation and discuss only that. So you just say, well, I want to use a first floor terrace. I want to do this and this with it, and I want to allow smoking. These are the hours and so on. That's what we're talking about. And yeah, I mean, that's what it is.
Can I just jump in there? So we're going to keep 32 in, which is no smoking on the first floor terrace at all. And then 33 and 34, perhaps we can use 34, the first floor roof terrace and the ground floor rear courtyard area shall be closed for customer use at any time.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's be good.
And take out 33 then.
Yeah.
Let's take out 33 about alcohol on the ground floor and the roof terrace, and just use 34 as for any customer use of the first floor terrace and ground floor rear courtyard. Are you okay with that, Mr. Cannon?
Yes, and can I just thanks for that. That's really clear. And can I just make something clear, if I haven't already done so, whether the first floor terrace is or isn't licensed at the moment is a moot point. Doesn't matter. We disagree on it, but doesn't matter, because this variation application by its plan makes it licensable. It makes it part of the licensed area. What we're doing is making it part of the licensed area, but then imposing restrictions on it. And that way we get the solution that Councillor Williams was suggesting. So any concern that Councillor Schmetterling had about whether it is or isn't licensed, I think doesn't arise in this case, because post your decision, if you grant the variation, it will be licensed, a part of the licensed area, and that's why we're imposing conditions on it.
Correct.
Mr. Missouri and Mr. Phelan, I mean, are you happy to go along with that approach, that assumption? I mean, they've had their legal advice, but the assumption that it is already part of the licensed area.
No, so that, sorry to interrupt, that's not the assumption. That's the point, that's the part of it that's moot. My view, for what it's worth, is that it is already part of the licensed area. Mr. Phelan's view is that it's not. Okay, that's a decision
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's what I'm asking for Mr. Phelan to comment. If he agrees with you.
No, he doesn't agree with me. We know that.
If he doesn't agree with you, what are the consequences?
No,
because we're going to have to consider this aspect.
You aren't going to have to. This is my. Can I try one more time to make this point? Our variation application. Perhaps if Ms. Mazurier could just go to page 18. Which is the, sorry, not page 18. Page.
Part of the variation is to include this area in the licensable area.
Exactly. And that would take effect whether Mr. Phelan is right or whether I'm right. It's either keeping it included or it's newly including it. It doesn't matter.
Yes, understood.
Thank you.
Understood. Okay.
All right, can we move on? Everyone ready?
Okay. All right.
Right, so condition 35, this is about the patio area, which I've called the private forecourt area at the front. Number 35, no persons, including staff, shall be permitted to smoke on the private forecourt area. And do you want to put unless at a table meal, but something along the lines of at a table meal? And do we want to restrict times?
Don't want to restrict the times. In the present wording, obviously that means that people seated at tables out there can't smoke, which we don't want. But if it said no persons, including staff, shall be permitted to smoke in the private forecourt area in front of the premises unless they are seated at tables or something of that nature, then that would be fine.
Seated at tables having a meal.
Fine. Yeah.
And do we, I mean, I know you don't want a restriction on the times, but obviously, do we want smoking at 11 o'clock at night, you know, if they're still eating their meal? What's your view on that?
Well, sorry, I think there's another phone call. Should we just pause while that's... Oh, no, maybe not. I don't see there's a particular need for a time. I'm not sure that sitting, taking a meal and smoking is any more problematic than sitting, taking a meal. Certainly in terms of noise, I don't think there's an issue about cigarette smoke drifting. Okay. So I don't think we need times there.
Okay, fine. That's good. Okay, so number 36, no alcohol is to be consumed on the private forecourt area. Again, what's your view on that, or do you want the same wording as the previous condition, unless they're seated at a table having a meal?
If it were the same wording as that, then that's absolutely fine. We don't propose that area to be used for drinking without eating, if I can put it that way. So yeah.
Bear with me while I jot this down. Table having a meal. Councillors, are you happy with that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm about to run out of battery though.
Oh, right, okay, I'll try and speed up. Condition 37, so private forecourt area shall be closed or kept clear of all customers between, perhaps the latter condition. What's your view on that, Mr. Cannon?
Well, clearly there's a benefit in having that clear at the end of its use, and I think it's entitled to, that should follow the opening hours of the premises, basically.
Okay. Okay, 38, this was obviously residents, so we're obviously concerned about noise. Are you happy with the external doors and windows being kept closed except for immediate access and egress from, and I put 9 p.m. in brackets. I don't know what the councillor's view is on that. It's all closed to the public.
Can I just respond before councillors do? Because we need to be a bit careful about this. First point is we've no difficulty at all with the doors and windows being kept closed, save for access and egress from a particular time. But you will know that there are some fairly extensive bifolding windows at the front, which it is a real asset of the premises that people can sit in the patio and have those bifold doors open and be part of the restaurant. So I can see that there might be an argument for those bifolding windows or doors, whichever they're defined as, closing from a particular time. I would say 2100 is too early, but we need to just be a bit careful that we're not rendering unusable, if you like, that space in that way. And you can see that you can see from the photos in our PowerPoint presentation that for many years those bifold doors have been there and have been open and bring the outside in, as it were. Yeah,
I mean, obviously the residents' concern is noise. So, I mean, what time would you suggest then?
Well, I would say 2300, which is when that's the last service of late night refreshment.
Okay. Obviously, the council can take a view on that, but obviously that's your suggestion. Right, okay, number 39, the outside tables and chairs on the private forecourt fronting the premises shall be rendered unusable by a certain time each day. So what times what's your view?
Well, again, I think that should coincide with opening and closing hours. I think that's probably, isn't that to some extent a
similar to 37?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, perhaps we can just merge them.
Yeah. Which one, sorry?
37 and 39, they're pretty similar. That being clear of customers and clear of tables and chairs.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 40. I don't know if we've already got self-closing devices on the doors, but that was raised as an issue by
Mr. Muser, I just want to ask a question. I mean, this is more hypothetical, perhaps. If the moving of the furniture, I mean, I don't know what furniture you propose to use, probably timber or cane or something, but if it's a material which causes, say, lots of scraping and so on, you'd be willing to consider or put rubber feet on the end or something like that.
That's actually part of our SOPs. I don't know if you spotted that. In our SOPs, we have a particular requirement for rubber feet on the tables outdoors. And you might remember from one of the representations that Geels, when it was run as Geels, one of the neighbours remembered that they did that too. Exactly, there we go. There's even there's a whole SOP about moving furniture, but the first bit is rubber feet on those tables.
I saw that, yeah. It's on page 5 of your...
Exactly. It's on the screen right now. And one of the residents said that Geels used to do that in a particularly effective or thoughtful way, and that we would hope to do exactly the same.
Fine. Thank you very much.
Lovely. So we were looking at 40. External doors shall be fitted with self-closing device that's maintained in a proper working condition. I don't know if you've got them already, but I think it was raised as an issue.
Well, again, this is the problem. There's no difficulty with the front door. It does have a self-closing device on it, and if it doesn't, we can put one on. The same with the 2 doors on Oxbridge Street. But obviously, the bifold windows, if they're considered to be external doors, you can't have a self-closing device on those. That obviously doesn't work. So
except the bifolding doors, then
that would be fine. Yeah.
Except bifolding windows. They're not doors, are they?
We think they're windows, but we would not want to have a fight about whether they're doors or doors or windows.
Do they go to the floor?
They do go more or less to the floor. You can see them in the photographs. I mean, you can definitely get in through them when they're open, but that's also true of certain windows. I'm not sure that's the essential difference. You can see there where they go down to. I mean, some people might see them as doors. So that's why I raise it.
Okay.
The point is they can't have a self-closing device on them. Just render them completely unusable.
Thank you. So we're on the last condition on the sheet, and I've got, as the hearing's gone, I've just got a couple of others just to add ad hoc, which we can discuss. 41, I've taken out the words food or. I put no drink shall be consumed by patrons on the private forecourt unless they are seated at tables and it's ancillary to consumption of a table. I think we might have addressed that earlier, actually. But
yeah, we have. I don't think we need 41 at all. I think we've got that. with the tweaked, was it 36? No.
36.
36, yeah.
Is it 36? Yeah, okay. So we don't need 41, okay. And just three more, just ad hoc ones, and sorry to throw them on you. What's your view on a dispersal policy with wording along the lines of the premises shall operate a dispersal policy and all staff shall be trained in its implementation?
Yeah, we've got no difficulty with that. We already have an SOP about how we get people away from the restaurant, and we could certainly make that into a policy if that's what it was needed. So yeah, no, there you go, the departure SOP. I mean, it's fairly simple, but actually what's required is relatively simple. It's that they turn left rather than right and go to Notting Hill Gate rather than down Farm Street.
And another one, which has just cropped up, it's just similar to the wording of existing condition 8. So no noise associated with the operation of the restaurant at the premises shall give rise to nuisance of occupiers of neighbouring properties. I just wonder what your view was that on.
So if you like an amendment to 8 to say no noise or vibration associated with the operation of plant or of the restaurant shall give rise to a nuisance. I mean, in principle, I have no difficulty with that. We don't intend to cause a nuisance, but it shouldn't be needed. It also, again, without being a lawyer about it, it sort of begs the question, because what a nuisance is completely subjective and depends. Now that's much easier with plant noise and vibration to get a handle on that. So I would resist that, because I think it adds a great deal of uncertainty and subjectivity. I mean, plainly, if the operation of Los Mochis gives rise to a nuisance, then we'll be back for a review. I mean, that's what the Licensing Act says about that. So I'm not sure that by condition we can rule that out.
Thank you. And then the final one, I think it was raised by Ms. Frail, and it's in relation to one of the mandatory conditions. And I don't think you can tweak mandatory conditions.
No.
But it was about adding tequila or mezcal. I don't know what. I'm obviously looking at the existing licence and the existing wording, so it's probably changed over time, and I'm presuming that the new licence will have the up-to-date mandatory conditions on. I'm just trying to see what page we're on.
Well, yeah, I mean, the suggestion is that at the moment you've only got a few defined types of drink, and the glass sizes associated with them. I guess to provide a small minimum. It says gin, whiskey, and brandy, whatever, but the suggestion is, pardon? Yeah, the suggestion is that we have, because we can't necessarily amend a mandatory condition, we should actually make a separate condition to add to that all spirits of 35% and above ABV, because that's there's a lot more stuff around than gin, rum, and vodka. Especially you'll have just tequila and mezcal there, but I wouldn't want to limit it to two types of drink. Just generally for spirits over, say, 35% and up.
I think we just need to be clear about this. Forgive me for saying so. That mandatory condition is what the government says must be on a licence, and we can't amend that. But it doesn't. You have to understand what that says. What it is about is the availability of smaller measures. It's not about maximum size measures. So what it says is that we need, as a very minimum, to offer beer in half pints. It doesn't say we can't offer them in pints, obviously.
I know, I realise that, but I'm just saying that the spirits minimum size is it just lists some drinks instead of saying all spirits. So what I'm saying, suggesting is, and indeed it is based on the objection which Mr. Mazurier mentioned, that this list is made more general. We can't amend a mandatory one perhaps, but we stick another one in to say, for all spirits above 35%, you have a minimum of 25 or 35 ml. Well, 25 ml, I suppose.
Look, as a matter of law, you could do that. You could impose that condition. But I question what would be the point. I'm not sure there's any difficulty here with serving mezcal, tequila, whatever else in two small measures. This doesn't. All this means is that you can, if you want to, order a mezcal or a tequila in that size. We must make that available. I don't think this relates to any of the variations.
Chairman, I must say that in my years on the licensing committee, I've never met a condition like this, even where we've been dealing with establishments where there have been serious problems of drunkenness.
No,
okay.
It's
Okay.
If I may say so, it's descending into a sort of management issue. The government has said what the mandatory condition is, and of course we must all abide by that, but I'm not sure there's any real basis, especially not in this application where there's no history of problem drinking or anything of that nature, to impose a availability of minimum serve condition for other drinks.
Okay, well, we'll consider that. Thank you very much. I have to say, though, that the history is not really relevant because everything's changing to a new operator with a new type of service and offering. So
sorry, I
let's forget the history of this, okay?
I meant the history of this operator, sorry.
Yes.
But you're quite right. Just before we leave the conditions, I just need to go back and make something clear in case it wasn't totally clear, which is about the door, whatever we're going to call them, the bifold doors and windows at the front. Sorry. Which I think was the discussion was in relation to condition 38. And we were talking about whether whether there ought to be a restriction on when doors and windows are to be kept open or kept closed, except for access and egress. I'm going to be absolutely frank about this. Those bifolding windows or doors, whatever we want to call them, and the ability to make the patio part of the restaurant is, first of all, a major asset of these premises, and second of all, something that has, for as long as anyone can remember, more or less, been available to the proprietors of this premises. It is a really central asset of the premises. Now, we have said that we'd be perfectly happy for that to apply after 11 p.m. and we accept that after 11 p.m. people have more of an expectation of quiet. I have to be really clear that any restriction earlier than 11 would be a major problem for these premises, a really major problem. And the thing that I need to say about it is that we need to put this in context, which is that there will be customers on the patio. So the noise impact of closing the doors or windows, whatever you want to call them, behind them will be relatively minor because there will still be customers on the patio and entitled to be on the patio afterwards. So while we are prepared to accept 2300, I can't force you to come to that decision or accept that or anything. Of course I can't, but I just need to make it as clear as I possibly can that any more restrictive condition on those doors or windows required to be closed would be a really major problem, actually a fundamental problem for the viability of these premises. That feature, the patio inside and the interconnectivity, is really central to the attractiveness of these premises. So that's as much as I can say on it, but I hope you understand that that is really a major concern to my client. I don't know whether it's worth saying again, of course, that none of that is really referable to the things that we're applying to vary. It doesn't relate to off sales, it doesn't relate to breakfast, and so on and so forth. So I don't think it's really directly relevant to the application, but it is a big issue for my client.
Thank you. Well, one could argue that it has some relevance because of the changes proposed. But anyway, Ms. Fraley would like to say something.
Yes, thank you. I was just going to say that is totally relevant because part of the variation is asking to regularize the plans, and you are taking it as a given that those areas, those outdoors areas, are licensed, and we've already discussed that is not as clear cut as you're putting it, and yes, so this is very relevant, and I think that you've made your points, we've made our points, and I think it's now up to the committee to decide on these issues, isn't it?
Well, it's clearly up to the committee, but I need to just come back on that because there actually is much greater clarity about the patio than there is about any of the other controversial areas. There is no doubt, none, that for many years that front patio has been treated both by the operator of Giels but also by the Royal Borough as being part of the licensed premises. If that were not true, there would have been multiple regular criminal offences committed in the photographs that you've seen. So whatever the strict legal position, it is the position of RBKC, and has been for many years, that that area is part of the licensed area of the premises. If not, we'd have seen enforcement cases. So I don't want to go down that route, but it's really clear, and it would be completely unconscionable for RBKC to treat that in a different way, given the long history of that patio being included within the part of it. The planning department, for what that's worth, not directly relevant to license, also think that's part of the planning unit. So I think this is a key point. Of course, whether it's licensed or not is neither here nor there anyway, because we could still use it for the service of food, which is a non-licensable area. But that's a small additional point. I think other than whatever Mr. Teslev wants to add, I need to be absolutely clear that the ability to use that in the way that it's always been used is a major and central part of this proposition.
Well, I'm sure we'll take that into account. Thank you very much. Mr. Teslev, I think that should be the last word from objectors and applicants. Mr. Teslev?
Hi, yes, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what Joe just said. I mean, we're spending £875,000 in crazy economic times at Brexit, employing 45 people while doing good for the community, which is giving a meal away every time we sell one, all based upon the legal advice we've had from a number of law firms, speaking to planning and existing operations where Ms. Farrell have admitted that she's herself uses this patio to 11:30 at night and people sitting there eating. This is fundamental to what we've invested and why we've picked this venue. So I just wanted to say, I really wanted to say that, you know, it's not fair to judge someone before they've done something wrong. And if there's something, I have to be able to rely on what's been in the place. And that's why we've taken on this location, amongst other reasons, to be part of that neighborhood. But I know you guys already understand that, and you guys, you've been around the block so many times. I know I have total confidence you guys in what you guys are doing there, and you've done a great job. And as a resident of RBKC, I know you'll continue doing that and do the right thing for this. So thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Well, thanks very much. Mr. Phelan, anything to add at this point, having seen all the discussions about the conditions?
Nothing to add. If I may, Chair, I would just like to clarify again, apologies for reiterating, the position of the licensing team is that the front forecourt of the premises was not part of the licensed area under the previous license. So I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Okay, so that would, okay, thank you very much. Okay.
So I don't know whether you would want to make given the importance of that point to my client, whether you'd want to make a ruling on that particular issue today. It might give some clarity to it. I mean, I'm surprised at Mr. Phelan's view, given the long history of the use of it. Seems unconscionable to suggest that wasn't part of it. But I don't know whether you would be able to let my client know whether you are intending on restricting that particularly important part of it without giving a view on the rest of the application. I don't know whether Ms. Lamazurier has a view about the propriety of that.
Mr. Phelan,
well, to be honest, it's hard to make any view because we obviously haven't gone into private session. And I don't know what the councillors' views are thinking, but I agree with what you said earlier on, that obviously it's part of the application now and can be considered as part of the application now. So I don't see it as being a hot potato as such.
No, I think that's right.
Any other comments from councillors, fellow members? Councillor Healy?
No, thank you.
Councillor Williams?
No, I think we need to consider that when we make our decision.
Right. Thank you very much. Well, I think we've reached the end of the meeting at 13:22. The committee now has all the information needed and we will retire to make our decision in private session. We shall not announce the decision today. Instead, the hearing on this application will be closed and the live broadcast will end. A summary of the decision will be sent to the parties within 5 working days of today's hearing, and a full decision will follow as soon as possible thereafter. Thank you all for attending, and the hearing is now closed.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.